Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. Pirates, God Level Collection, Leading Luffy to Become the King. Chapter 1. Who? Sha Chen woke up from the nightmare. The suffocating feeling of being swallowed by the cold seawater and depriving his life bit by bit still lingered in his heart. He punched the wall next to him heavily. There were already many blood marks on it, one on top of the other. His wound, which had not healed yet, broke again. But he seemed to feel nothing. He pulled out a few strips of cloth from under the pillow and wrapped up the wound. His body swayed slightly with the boat, and it was not an ordinary boat. Bang, bang, bang. There were fierce knocks on the door, and the wooden door, which was not big to begin with, was shaking constantly, as if it would be smashed open in the next second. He opened the door with a cold face and stared at the intruder without saying a word. The other party was a tall and thin man who was more than 1.9 meters tall, wearing a white and blue sailor's uniform. Lazy bum. It's already this late, and you're still sleeping. Come here quickly. Without saying anything, he grabbed Wang Zichen's arm and walked out. He was not as strong as him, so he could only keep up with a cold face. In fact, he could only understand the word, lazy bum, in this sentence. Because these days, the words they say the most, besides, are lazy bum. Although the pronunciation is very similar to Japanese, it has a heavy accent. Sha Chen's pitiful and monotonous reserves are useless. Because this is the world of One Piece, not the former Blue Star. He has been in this world for 10 days. According to the information currently available, he is wearing, and his physical fitness is not even comparable to that of ordinary people in the world of One Piece. There are too many monsters in this world. If something happens, it will be island by island. Although he went with that fool to pursue the treasure of the female pirate king of Jiaoji before he traveled through time, he didn't take it seriously at the beginning and planned to turn back halfway. As a result, he was drowned and traveled directly to the world of One Piece. It is lucky to live again. He deeply understands a truth that only those who have experienced death understand: the preciousness of life and the horror of death. What if you have experienced death? You will not be afraid of death. It's all bullshit. Led by the tall and thin sailor, they avoided those dignitaries and came to the deck. A fat man who was 2 meters tall and looked very sturdy said dissatisfiedly, "Why are you here just now?" "It's this guy who overslept again." The thin man glared at Sha Chen with dissatisfaction, then pushed him forward and he staggered and almost fell. Rubbish. The other party cursed, but Sha Chen didn't understand. He was still trying hard to learn the universal language of One Piece. But when the other party skillfully took out a rope the size of a baby's fist from behind, he consciously stretched out his arms and let the other party tie it around his waist. Then he put his hands on the side of the boat and jumped into the sea. He was salvaged by the 2 crew members on the passenger ship, but unfortunately he could not understand their words and had no money, so he was forced to work illegally. He was mainly responsible for salvaging things from the sea, sometimes the wreckage of the ship, and sometimes some fresh fish or shellfish. Fortunately, he was also a seaman in his previous life, and his swimming skills were maxed out. This time his target was an oak barrel floating from the front. Sha Chen swam over with indifference on his face. He had encountered many similar oak barrels before. He used to think that he would encounter a miracle and meet Monkey D. Luffy's, but it turns out that he didn't have that luck. He had already made a plan to sneak away when the ship docked. Find a place to practice the 10-mile sword god, and then come out. But he never expected that when he just put his hand on the oak barrel and waited for the 2 people on the boat to pull him back, a light curtain suddenly popped up in front of him, and a mechanical sound rang out. Destiny Child detected. God level collection technique is enabled. First opening. Gift 5 collection times, Pirate World Common Language LV1. Character panel loading. 1%, 20%, 60%, 100%, loading completed. Sha Chen, who had been keeping strangers away, suddenly widened his eyes. This must be an illusion. No, it's not. Hiss. A lot of information poured into his mind, and he understood the effect of this God-level collection technique. To put it bluntly, this is the kind of collection technique commonly seen in games, but the effect is even more outrageous: billions of points. At the same time, his own data was also displayed on the panel. Cheat Inspector. Sha Chen. Test cheat. God level collection technique. Physical fitness. 0.3. Spirit. 1.2. Skills. Swimming LV4, Fishing LV2, Pirate World Common Language LV1, Chopping Wood LV1, Navigation LV1, Licking. Because of the large amount of information coming in, he almost fainted. Fortunately, he hugged the barrel in time, and the barrel also provided him with a certain amount of buoyancy, and he soon recovered. The God-level collection technique claims to be able to collect anything. The sea can also be used. At this time, he was completely immersed in the sea water. He just had a thought. A ball of white light that only he could see suddenly appeared in front of him. The collection was successful. Congratulations on getting a portion of pure water. Sha Chen was stunned. Is this God-level collection technique so good? Keep collecting. The collection was successful. Congratulations on getting 10 points of physical fitness. He was shocked on the spot. He could collect this thing. He chose to receive it immediately. If he didn't receive it, it would always appear in front of him, and only he could see it. Only after receiving it, the real thing would appear in reality. After all, this plugin has not been equipped with a warehouse yet, but the previous information told him that after the plugin is continuously upgraded, all functions will be equipped one by one. It is not yet complete. A warm current flowed into the body, constantly strengthening his bones, meridians, blood and muscles, but from the outside, there was no obvious change. Although the physical and mental standards of ordinary people in the world of One Piece are both 1, having 10 points of physical fitness does not mean that you can defeat 10 people, it may be 20 or even 30. The gap between people is really big. This feeling of instant strength is very refreshing. He did not reserve it immediately and used all the remaining 3 collection numbers. Since the physical fitness can be obtained, the spirit should be the same. The sea is indeed a treasure. Collection was successful. Congratulations on gaining 10 points of physical fitness. The collection was successful. Congratulations on winning 100,000 Baileys. The collection was successful. Congratulations on obtaining the skill, driving water. A golden light appeared in front of Sha Chen, and the background sound of Golden Legend was faintly heard. God of Wealth bless us, a big shipment is coming, come and get it. A wave of energy that seemed both hot and cool suddenly surged into his body, as if it had even enveloped his soul. However, compared to the physical enhancement, this feeling was even more difficult to extricate oneself from. So much so that his arms were so weak that he could not help but let go of the barrel. What are you doing? Hurry up and hold the barrel. Otherwise I'll kill you, trash. Fat brother, give him a hand first, if he dies, he won't be able to sell it. Sha Chen was awakened, his eyes slightly narrowed. He turned back coldly to look at the 2 people who were lying on the side of the ship and shouting, and instinctively hooked his fingers lightly, and the sea current surged, directly rolling the wine barrel back. Sha Chen happened to hug him, and then the 2 people above immediately pulled Sha Chen up excitedly. Taking advantage of this time, Sha Chen also absorbed the 10 points of physical fitness, but he gritted his teeth and didn't feel good. Sha Chen was also pulled up by the 2 people together with the wine barrel. The 2 people didn't realize that it was wrong. On weekdays, they would pull the goods up first, and then let Sha Chen climb up from the net of the boat by himself. Although they had long known that Sha Chen, a weak chicken, had no strength at all. But their attention was on the wine barrel. The excitement of opening the blind box filled their already small brains. Bang! The oak wine barrel was placed straight and landed on the ground. Water style. Water reversal technique. After the fierce fighting, everything ended easily. In addition to the first time when Sha Chen killed 10 pirate minions and was given 1 time, he killed more than 30 people later, but was only given 1 time, but the next 9 times were obtained after he defeated Aurita and the supporting minions. In the world of One Piece, the pirates generally follow a rule that the captain is the strongest person on the ship. If you defeat the captain, you are considered to have defeated the pirate group. Obviously, this rule also works in the God-level collection technique. Sha Chen took a short break and recovered some of his strength. He came to the stern. When he passed the door, he could see the trembling guests, crew members and pirates inside, but when they saw Sha Chen's indifferent eyes, they all turned their heads and pretended not to see him. Especially those pirates, the swords in their hands fell to the ground with a clang. When he came to the stern, Sha Chen put his hands in front of his eyes and looked far away, and finally found the shadow of Aurita floating on the sea. He jumped off the boat directly, and a stream of water flew up, dragging him towards Aurita. When he came closer, he took a look at the latter. Although she was alive, she had fainted and was floating on her back. Scientists are right. Fatty has strong buoyancy. Sha Chen put his hand directly on Aurita's head. Collected successfully, and gained 15 points of physical fitness. Sure enough, if there is a fixed target, the probability of shipment will be directional. Use it and continue to collect. Sha Chen curled his lips and absorbed the 15 points of physical fitness. The physical strength that was exhausted before was almost fully replenished. Collected successfully, and gained 5 points of physical fitness. Collected successfully, and gained 1 point of spirit. Collected successfully, and gained 1 Aurita mace. Collected successfully, and gained Aurita's navigation skills. Congratulations to the quality inspector for completing 10 God-level collections. The panel is being upgraded. The upgrade is complete. New function. Warehouse. Sha Chen glanced at the panel. There was an icon of level 2 behind the God-level collection technique, and a white mark of the remaining times behind it. At the same time, there was an icon of a brown backpack at the bottom of the panel, and there were backpack grids like those commonly seen in games. But there are only 10 grids at present. According to the prompts inside, only the collected things can be stored here. This plugin is suspected of plagiarism. After a ridiculous thought flashed through his mind, he absorbed the physique and spirit, and the mace and navigation skills were stored in the warehouse. As for the previous pure water, it had been used by Sha Chen a long time ago. In addition, he found that the pure water was much smoother to manipulate than seawater. I don't know why. Now there are 11 collection times, and 6 times are left. He looked at Aurita, whose body had obviously shrunk, and collected again. Collection successful. Get Aurita's little bear asterisk. Get out of here. Sha Chen felt like he almost had a sty. He threw the light ball that just emerged far away, and immediately activated the power of water control, smashing it to pieces, leaving nothing behind. He looked at the remaining 5 collection times, thought about it and decided not to use it for the time being. He believed in the theory of luck tides, and now he probably entered a bad luck trough. Let's talk about it later. Anyway, there are many strong people in the world of One Piece, and there are many opportunities to use these collections. In addition, the rapid improvement of physical fitness also requires Sha Chen to use some time to exercise and adapt. Just like the previous battle with Aurita. If he hadn't had the water control skill in hand and formed a water shield barrier in time, he would have been hit hard in the chest by Aurita's mace and seriously injured. However, if that were the case, Sha Chen probably wouldn't be the first to do it. In fact, with his physical fitness of more than 20 points, he could have dodged it. But after all, it was because his physical fitness improved too quickly and he had not fully adapted. At this time, his physical fitness had reached 40.3 points and his spirit 2.2 points. He pinched his arm and could feel the obvious toughness and solidity. As a sailor in his previous life, he often exercised, but he had never felt this tight, majestic and powerful feeling. Even after eating the roasted kidney and the magic gun set meal, it was still the same. After all, the worldview is different. And he felt that he seemed to have grown a little taller. He used to be 1.78 meters tall, the height standard of the elegant male of the flower-growing family. With a thought, the sparkling water in front of him instantly turned into a smooth water mirror. He leaned over and looked at the person in the mirror. He was about 20 years old, with black hair, sword eyebrows, star eyes, and a high nose bridge. The double chin in his previous life had disappeared, and Sha Chen's handsomeness in his senior year of high school was reproduced. He wore a linen-colored open-chested short-sleeved top, the lower body is black trousers. If he becomes a star with this face, he will be a phenomenal traffic star. Unfortunately, he was not interested in this at that time. He yearned for the sea, studied navigation, and became a seaman. When he thought of this, he remembered the who made him hate to the bone. He shook his head and threw these distracting thoughts out of his mind. Under the push of the water under his feet, he returned to the direction of the passenger ship pirate ship. As for whether Aurita lives or dies, it depends on her fate. It is best to survive, because at that time she will probably get the slippery fruit, which will be a very good collection object. As the two ships got closer and closer, Sha Chen looked at the pink pirate ship and suddenly thought of something. He turned around and rushed directly to the pink pirate ship. He flew onto the deck with the help of the water flow. He saw a sloppy pirate covering his crotch lying at the door of the captain's room. Sure enough, Nami, the future genius navigator of the Straw Hat Pirates, appeared in the first episode, and her encounter with Luffy was a fateful one. Sha Chen didn't know when she got on this passenger ship. Although he had worked as a waiter, those real dignitaries were not something he could get in touch with. And Nami's purpose of getting on the passenger ship was naturally to steal money, in order to save up 100 million berries to buy the Kokoja village from the fishman Arlong. This was the agreement between him and Arlong of the Fishman Pirates. Since the day she joined, she has been moving towards this goal unswervingly. But she didn't know that this was a lie in itself. How could Arlong let her, the genius navigator, go? Unfortunately, Nami knew nothing about this. Sha Chen walked to the door of the captain's room, and he looked inside. Sure enough, there was a petite figure with his back to the door, putting all kinds of gold treasures in the box into a big package. Nami was so excited that she didn't notice the person behind her. Boom boom boom. Who is it? Nami looked back reflexively. Then she froze, and a chill ran up from her feet to her head. She had wanted to join the Alita pirates before, so she saw the whole battle between Sha Chen and Alita from the window. The ruthlessness of the casual slaughter of pirates left a deep impression on her. As for the water control superpower, she didn't think much about it. After all, the cadres of the Fishman Pirates all knew how to use Fishman karate, and they were also good at controlling water. Although Sha Chen didn't look like a fishman. But based on her inner fear of fishmen, with the double buffs superimposed, Nami was even more afraid of Sha Chen. She staggered and sat directly on the package. "Miss, what are you going to do with my spoils?" Sha Chen said playfully. "Hey, I'm here to help you, big brother. Please organize the treasures. It's so convenient to carry it like this." Hee. Nami tied the bag very quickly and put it on her back. This package is bigger than her, but Nami doesn't seem to have any difficulty. No wonder everyone says that Nami's true strength is a mystery. Really. Now, Sha Chen was about to tease Nami. A passionate voice suddenly came from the passenger ship, rubber pistol. Sha Chen instinctively turned his head to look, and then a black shadow rushed directly in front of him. Bang! Sha Chen didn't even have time to react, and was directly punched away by Luffy. Luffy's strength is needless to say. Before he opened the second gear, his strength had already reached the range of the headquarters colonel to the headquarters major general. Opening the second gear is almost a stable headquarters major general level. If the third gear is added, it can be close to the headquarters vice admiral level. And he has an enviable feature: unlimited sit-ups. In short, no matter how many times he is knocked down, he can continue to stand up and fight you, which is outrageous. But considering that he is the protagonist, it is unreasonable and reasonable. Especially when the fifth gear Luffy was born, he was also knocked unconscious by Kaido's Thunder Bagua. But because he heard the call of his so-called companion, the fruit awakened inexplicably. It's no wonder that the majority of fans would say, misleading students, Pluto Rayleigh, famous teacher and apprentice, 4 Emperors Kaido. 1 stick awakens Armament Haki Ryuzakura, 2 sticks awakens Overlord Haki Entanglement, 3 sticks directly awakens the fruit, upgrade and replace. This is outrageous. As for Sha Chen's current physique, it is naturally not as good as Luffy's. When he woke up slowly, he was already lying on a swaying boat, surrounded by the vast sea, and even a seagull could not be seen. "Mr. Luffy, that gentleman is awake." "Oh, let me see." Luffy's voice came from the side, and then Sha Chen saw the familiar image wearing a straw hat. Although the anime character has become a reality, you can still see the stupidity on the other person's face. Sha Chen was knocked unconscious for no reason. He couldn't stand it and started to curse. As a result, Luffy on the opposite side reacted faster and knelt down to Sha Chen. Boom! Luffy's head hit the bottom of the boat heavily. "I'm so sorry, please join my pirate group." Sha Chen's many dirty words were choked in his throat and couldn't be spit out. Kobe next to him showed a funny expression of being shocked for 800 years. How could Sha Chen be someone else's subordinate? He lived a new life and naturally wanted to pursue freedom. He would not become a pirate unless he had to. Although the Straw Hat Pirates are not pirates in the popular sense, they have done many things that people can't stand, such as the most difficult to erase bad incident, the escape of prisoners from Impelton Prison. Luffy is happy, but so many prisoners ran away. Do you know how many people will die because of this? Of course, this is their family's traditional art. His grandfather, Monkey D. Garp, killed countless babies in the South China Sea for the so-called promise. Of course, this is just a matter of fact. From the audience's point of view, Sha Chen also admires Garp's credibility, but it's different in the real world. So he was ready to refuse directly, But unexpectedly, the panel suddenly popped up. Join the Straw Hat Pirates and you will get a fixed number of collections every day. Guaranteed. Well, of course, I also plan to set up an adventure group, but I want to be the captain. Really? Welcome to join. Luffy raised his head with a happy face, and a water column appeared, from small to large, directly splashing Luffy's face, and his body softened like noodles. Kobe was scared. In this vast ocean, it would be troublesome if the boat leaked. He shouted to find something to block it, but the boat was in full view and there was no extra ship repair supplies prepared at all. Sha Chen sighed helplessly, and with a slight movement of his mind, the water flow blocked itself back. Then he cleared the seawater from Luffy's body. Luffy thanked him first, and then suddenly thought of something. He looked at Sha Chen seriously. Captain, it can only be me. No, because I am the man who will become the Pirate King. So the Pirate King will be a woman. No, it will definitely be me who will become the Pirate King. So there is no conflict. I want to be the captain of the adventure group, and you are the captain of the pirate group. We can implement a dual captain system. In addition, I will tell you about the dual track salary system. Luffy was very obsessed with this aspect, and no matter how Sha Chen fooled him, he failed in the end. Of course, Sha Chen was also doing it for fun. He secretly accelerated the speed of the boat and used Aurita. The navigation skills I got there gave me more knowledge, but unfortunately I didn't upgrade and it was still level 1. In the process, they got to know each other. Luffy was a serious guy, but he was also funny when he was being ridiculous. From this moment on, Sha Chen became a glorious pirate. Oh my god, this idea is so dangerous. Of course, in addition to this, Sha Chen's biggest gain was that he got Luffy's personal promise to become the future vice-captain of the Straw Hat Pirates. Now there is no need for the majority of One Piece fans to fight on the forum. Just vote for yourself. If you have your own world, it will be drawn by Oda. Not long after, the Navy Island Shields town was already in sight. Because there was no pirate flag on their ship, they entered the port smoothly. Luffy shouted that he was very hungry when he got off the ship, and jumped onto the dock and ran away. Mr. Sha Chen, I'll go find a boatman to help you mend the boat. Kobe stuttered and tried to slip away. For some reason, he always felt that Sha Chen's gaze on him was quite creepy. Sha Chen smiled slightly and reached out to press Kobe's shoulder. It was hard to imagine that in the anime, Kobe, who was as small as a bean, could reach his chest. Together, Kobe, do you know that you have a half-brother with the same name, and he is much more powerful than you? I have a brother, why haven't I heard of this? Collected successfully. Congratulations to the host for gaining 1 point of physical fitness. For some reason, Kobe suddenly felt a sense of weakness, and his stomach made a gurgling sound, and his face flushed with shame. Sha Chen smiled and said, why don't we go eat first? I'm hungry too. I'll tell you about your brother later. Yes, Mr. Sha Chen. But the ship is going to sink. Don't worry, there are plenty of them on the dock. Then they walked towards the central street of the town. Continue collecting. Collecting successfully. Congratulations to the host for getting 5 points of spirit. Kobe felt a trance, and a black shadow appeared in front of him, but he shook his head and recovered a lot. He was so hungry. Sha Chen's eyes lit up. This was the most spirit value he had ever obtained at one time. Come on, collect. Get an ordinary piece of clothing. Kobe's white short-sleeved shirt turned into a ball of light in Sha Chen's eyes, and the clothes on his body disappeared directly. The latter was so scared that he jumped up, and Sha Chen pressed him down with a little force. Where are the clothes? Where are my clothes? There's a ghost, Mr. Sha Chen, there's a ghost. He was almost scared to death. Carefully hiding behind Sha Chen, the strength that burst out at that moment made Sha Chen look sideways. He thought he only collected 1 point of physical fitness because this Kobe was really a weak chicken. Especially the opponent's upper body, it was just a rib spirit. Interesting, worthy of being a person whose growth rate is even more outrageous than Luffy. He snapped his fingers, and a stream of water rolled up a piece of clothing from not far away and flew over. Okay, stop howling, where are the ghosts in this world? Collect successfully. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the skill, Hockey. Can this thing be produced at this time? Could it be that the god-level collection technique can collect across the long river of time? Sha Chen was amazed, and he couldn't wait to absorb this domineering skill. This is a must for a sea powerhouse. After absorbing it, his body was slightly hot, but he didn't feel much strengthened. He opened the panel and saw that this domineering skill was followed by LV0, and it was gray. He tried to activate it, but didn't feel anything. What is this, are you kidding me? Sha Chen was speechless for a while, but unfortunately the panel didn't give him any response. So Sha Chen thought about it and felt that this thing should be something like a seed or a talent. Although it was also classified in the skill column. And now he noticed that when this thing appeared before, there was no special effect halo on it. When he obtained the skill of controlling water, there was golden light. This is a skill of the same level that is comparable to the same level. It stands to reason that without some special effects, it is really sorry for the teachings of Teacher Kaido. You can't become a strong man just by relying on the power of the fruit. Although he felt a little disappointed, after all, he was wearing it, and maybe his body didn't have this talent at all. It was a good thing that it was completed now. I don't know if it was a certain type of domineering that was completed, or all of it. Looking at the name, it is likely to be all of it. As for Kobe, who was still immersed in panic, he suddenly felt a sense of loss in his heart, as if he had lost something very important. But now there is no time to care about it. What he fears most is these ghosts. Sha Chen looked at Kobe's panic. There was only one collection left. After thinking about it, he didn't continue. Kobe was already very productive today. It would be too embarrassing to pull it all out. Then he added the physical and mental qualities he absorbed to himself. At this time, his comprehensive quality has reached 41.3 physical fitness and 7.2 mental fitness. In less than a day, he has been reborn. Woo! Kobe noticed that Sha Chen's body was trembling slightly, and he became concerned. Sha Chen just smiled and shook his head. Kobe, from today on, we are plastic brothers with different fathers and mothers. Although I will be a pirate and you will be a navy in the future, as the eldest brother, I have a few words to remind you. Kobe's eyes suddenly lit up. He knew how terrible Sha Chen's strength was. His little face flushed with excitement. He nodded repeatedly and listened quietly to Sha Chen's next words. There are many kinds of marines, and Kobe, the most suitable one for you is called the Deserter King, I mean the social flow navy. Sha Chen fooled Kobe. He didn't have any bad feelings towards this little guy. He just took a lot of things from him, and he didn't know whether these things would be restored in the future, and he didn't say anything about the collection technique. But he decided to give this little guy some compensation when he had the chance in the future. Then he took Kobe to eat something in the central street, and then went back to the dock area to stroll for a while, and found a ship that suited his taste. It was impossible for him to go out to sea on that small boat, which was too embarrassing. Moreover, it was now sunk. When he rushed to the Liga restaurant in the center of the town, he saw a yellow-haired man being punched out by Luffy. It's bad, it's too late. Sha Chen muttered and walked over with big strides. Barumber, who was hit hard, was about to say a few harsh words when he heard a rapid whistle coming from the side. He turned his head and saw a water ball the size of a human head enlarged in front of him. Boom! He was swept into the sky by the huge potential energy of the water ball, and then continued to emerge from the water ball, which brutally ravaged him, and finally the whole person was bleeding and completely fainted. Defeat the important plot character Belmer and get 2 collection times. Belmer fell to the ground like a rotten linen, and he was breathing out more and breathing in less. There is a monster. It's over, we are going to die. Run quickly, little brother, you are beating the only son of Colonel Monka, who is a ruthless dictator. Yes, if you don't leave, you will die. The residents of the town who saw this scene were panicked one by one, and some even closed their shops and ran away, but some stayed to advise Sha Chen to leave quickly. Sha Chen scratched his head without caring. He grinned and said to Luffy, who had just come out, "Captain, do you want this person?" As he said that, he made a gesture of cutting the neck. The latter shook his head. "No, I'm going to see our new crew now, do you want to join us?" The new crew, the pirate hunter I mentioned on the way here, Roronoa Zoro. "Yes, I've seen him, he's a very interesting guy. I want someone who is interested in you," Luffy said, pressing his straw hat and striding towards the direction of the naval base. He had not only met Zoro before, but also saved a little girl named Liga, and because of this, he had a grudge with Belmber, but after returning to the restaurant and listening to Zoro's story, he became more and more certain that this was the person he wanted. Sha Chen casually collected and threw it on Belmber. Collection successful. Congratulations to the host for gaining 10 points of physical fitness. Collection successful. Congratulations to the host for gaining 15 points of spirit. The harvest was not small, and then Sha Chen stopped and caught up with Luffy in 3 or 2 steps. "Captain, think it through, he is a pirate hunter, we are pirates. What does it matter? He will definitely join our pirate group, and don't you think that swordsmen are cool?" Luffy grinned. "Hey, Captain, the latter is your real purpose. Hee hee." Luffy was so shocked that he didn't think anything of it. A moment later, they came to the wall of the naval base, and looked inside while lying side by side. A green light came into view, and Roronoa Zoro was tied to a cross in an awkward position. His head was hanging down, and there was fresh blood on his head, which showed that he had just been beaten. "How stupid," Sha Chen muttered. "Most people in One Piece have a sense of stupidity. He is a famous pirate hunter who is used to seeing the evil of people. How could he believe in Monka's promise? If Sha Chen was threatened like that, he would destroy him in a minute." Of course, Sha Chen was proud and relieved to have such a partner who kept his promise. "What did you just say?" Luffy, who was paying full attention to Zoro, suddenly got it. Sha Chen shook his head and said, "I just said what should we do next?" Quote. Of course, Luffy pressed his straw hat with one hand and rolled over onto the training ground. "Roronoa Zoro, be my partner." Zoro, who was sleepy, hungry and thirsty, raised his head, his eyes sharper than an eagle's, and looked at Luffy with murderous intent. The other party had a silly face and grinned. For some reason, I was touched. Especially since the other party had just saved Li Jia, the rice ball was delicious. "You again. Are you a pirate? Didn't I say that?" "No, you, forget it, I won't be a pirate. Go away while I'm busy, or I'll kill you." As Zoro spoke, a murderous aura emanated from him, but Luffy didn't care at all and started bargaining with Zoro directly. He used the art of verbal persuasion. In the end, Luffy, who was wise but foolish, reached a preliminary agreement with Zoro directly. If he helped Zoro retrieve the samurai sword, then he would join Luffy's pirate group. Although Zoro felt that the other party was a little despicable and was trying to trick him, he had already figured it out. If he continued to stay here, he would only end up dead. Just as Luffy was about to act, a shrill alarm suddenly sounded in the base. Sha Chen's voice came from afar, "Captain, I picked up something good." Sha Chen, carrying a bundle of swords, ran over from the entrance outside the training ground, and at the same time showed off a white samurai sword in his hand with a scabbard to the two of them. "Wado Ikimonji, who are you? Be careful, bang bang bang. Catch that thief." They ran towards the training ground, "Don't let him get away. Dare to invade our base," Colonel Monka said, "to kill without mercy." The Marines holding flintlock rifles rushed in from outside the training ground, and saw that there were others at the scene, and immediately shot. Luffy's eyes condensed, and his arm swung over, pulling Sha Chen behind him, and he opened his arms to block the direction of the bullet. "Hey, be careful." Zoro didn't have time to continue paying attention to the Wado Ikimonji, and hurriedly reminded Luffy. But the latter was not afraid at all. After the bullet hit him, it didn't hurt him at all, but bounced back. Luffy's amazing scene also shocked Zoro. After all, although he had been at sea for a while, due to his characteristics of being a road idiot, he had never met a devil fruit ability user so far, nor had he heard his master, who was very hidden, mention it. "Our captain is a rubber fruit user." Don't worry, this is a small problem for him. Also, have you made a decision? Sha Chen asked, are you going to die here, or pick up a knife and fight together? How despicable. Do I have a choice? So, you are his crew member. Sha Chen grinned, slowly pulled out the Wado Ikimonji, and chopped it down heavily in a very awkward posture in Zoro's eyes. Puff! The rope on one arm broke, and his forearm was also cut open with a bloody wound. Sha Chen was embarrassed all of a sudden. Hey, what are you doing? If you can't use a knife, don't touch it. Boy, remember, I, Sha Chen, am the future vice captain of the Pirate King. I left you this scar. Sooner or later, you will be deeply proud. Sha Chen hadn't finished pretending yet. Zoro, who had already gained space to move, reached out and grabbed the Wado Ikimonji directly from Sha Chen's hand. The speed was very fast. Sha Chen summoned a water shield like a reflex, and the whole person quickly retreated backwards. Zoro's pupils shrank, but he had no intention of pursuing. He just used his knife to easily cut off the other ropes on his body. In fact, according to Zoro's strength, he is fully capable of breaking it. I don't know why he has to do this. Hey, Vice Captain, I haven't recognized you yet. He moved his shoulders slightly, looked at Luffy who had already fought with a group of Marines, picked up the two knives thrown by Sha Chen, slowly pulled out one and bit it in his mouth. But I can give you a chance now. See who of us defeats more enemies, and the one who defeats more will be the vice captain. How about it? Hey, you are so brave, but you can really talk with your sword bitten. Sha Chen looked interested, and Zoro was very upset. Three swords flow tiger hunting. Zoro flashed and rushed directly into the crowd, slashing and killing wantonly, like mowing grass. He would not show mercy once he took action. Since he was destined to stand on the opposite side of the navy, he would just do it. You can actually read it out, Sha Chen said happily. Standing firmly in place, he raised his hands and made a shooting gesture, water-style water cannon. The water gathered at his fingertips and then turned into a spiral bullet, which was shot out with full force. It hurt anyone who touched it, and Sha Chen consciously picked the opponent chosen by Zoro. He made the opponent angry and his offensive became more fierce, but he couldn't say anything else. After all, he was the one who proposed the competition. Three swords style bull needle. Three swords style demon slash. Three swords style two strong power slashes. Zoro is indeed a naming fruit ability user. I don't know when he developed the habit of calling out the name of the move before making a move. I thought it was a plot requirement in the anime, but it turned out to be the same in reality. But how could a warrior's killing effect be comparable to that of a mage? In just 2 minutes, the score between him and Zoro had already reached 45, a full 8 times gap, and this gap was still increasing. Because although those Marines had also undergone simple training, they had never seen such a fierce man. It is not without reason that the East China Sea is called the weakest sea. They were so scared that they dared not move forward. Assholes, what are you doing? A frightened Marine was seriously injured by the axe of the Axe King, Monka, who suddenly appeared. Come on, everyone, those who retreat will be killed without mercy. He gathered strength on his knees, flew into the sky, and slashed towards Zoro with a world-shattering blow. Although he was hypnotized by Zhangao, his brain and reason were affected, but he still had basic fighting instincts. He saw that Zoro was the weakest among these people, so he cleaned him up first. No wonder I didn't find it before. When Sha Chen went to look for Zoro's samurai sword before, he was ready. He knocked down the opponent with ease. After all, this is also an important plot character. After defeating him, you can get a lot of collection times. Unfortunately, he was discovered by a navy. He didn't think about trying the power of the gun himself, so he took the knife and retreated first. But now seeing the statue of Monka on the roof of the small building, some vague memories came into his mind. After Monka appeared, Sha Chen immediately set his sights on him, but considering that he was the Axe King, one of the few who defeated the Navy hero, Garp before the war, Sha Chen paid enough attention to him and began to accumulate power. At first, it was just a spiral water gun as long as a javelin, which slowly extended and became larger, becoming the size of a cannon, until it became thicker than a person. Sha Chen's face was also flushed, and the water flow spun wildly, and it collided with the air and made a humming sound. It happened that Zoro was repelled by the opponent's axe at this time, and it was about to sweep away the army and split in half. Luffy didn't control the strength before him and flew away. Water style. Super hard vortex water blade. Sha Chen pushed forward with both hands. The huge spiral water gun cut through the air, almost touching Zoro's side face, and hit Monka hard, knocking him out, and the cutting force carried by the water flow instantly shattered his body tissues, and the water gun was stained with blood. And because of the angle, it happened to hit the statue that had just been erected on the roof of the small building. And it directly pierced a huge hole in the statue, and Monka disappeared. Really turned into scum. Axe King Monka, nothing more than that. Sha Chen shook his head with disdain, but the scene fell into extreme silence. Even Luffy stopped, really stunned, and looked at Sha Chen. And those Marines who had been swept by Sha Chen before, one by one, were like being pricked by needles, and hurriedly avoided his sight. Noticing Zoro's equally shocked look, Sha Chen whispered, "We are all brothers, no need to thank me." Tisk. Zoro suppressed his shock. In fact, the huge water gun just now almost passed by his body. At that moment, he had tinnitus. You can imagine how much power the water gun carries. Sha Chen is not tall, but I didn't expect him to be so strong. The next second, he took a posture to continue attacking, and those Marines quickly threw away their weapons and surrendered directly. Defeat the 153rd branch of the Navy and obtain 12 collection times. Sha Chen is happier now. Including the remaining one time before, there are now a total of 13 times. He can collect a wave well, and then he patted his head in annoyance. He can definitely collect a lot of physical attribute points from the Axe King Monka, but this is completely wasted. I have to be more careful next time. Those Marines also complained to Luffy. They said how they were oppressed by Monka and how unwilling they were. In short, they attacked Luffy and others not on purpose, but because they had no choice. In fact, during the battle just now, Luffy and Zoro had already noticed that there was something wrong with this team, and there was no blood at all. Although they were also afraid, it was the Marine Colonel Monka who made them afraid. So when Monka died, they surrendered directly. Sha Chen didn't care about so much, and walked towards the Navy building, intending to pick up some treasures. Since he became a pirate, he should do what a pirate should do. Unfortunately, he was grabbed by Luffy after walking a few steps. "What are you doing, Captain?" Sha Chen was pulled over by Luffy without any resistance. He couldn't even wrestle with him. You have to know that his current physical level is 51 times the average level. Rubber fruit, so terrifying. Let's go eat. Zoro, you're so hungry. Sha Chen saw that Zoro had really fainted. According to him, he hadn't eaten for 3 weeks. The physique of people in the One Piece world is really outrageous. Just go, I know where the restaurant is. Sha Chen said and continued to walk towards the small building. But he was pulled back by Luffy again. He grabbed Zoro with his other hand and dragged him directly out of the courtyard wall. "Ship, Captain, let me go, I can walk by myself." Sha Chen was helpless. "In fact, I felt that Luffy had other intentions, that is, he didn't want me to really go plunder, but since I was his crew member and I didn't really do anything wrong, he didn't care about me. Don't think that Luffy is really stupid just because he looks silly and careless on the surface. He is just a wise fool. And although he kept saying that he went to sea as a pirate, what he did was incompatible with normal pirates in this world. Of course, this refers specifically to the incident before the Impelton prison. Luffy didn't let go of Sha Chen, and dragged him to the restaurant of Liege's family. Luffy and Zoro ate heartily after receiving their warm hospitality, and Sha Chen also ate a lot. Speaking of which, he hadn't eaten anything since the morning battle, and his stomach was empty, because the physical properties he had continuously collected made him ignore the feeling of hunger. As for the taste, it can only be said to be average. Sha Chen, where is Kobe? Luffy, who poured a plate of fried rice into his mouth, finally remembered Kobe, the poor kid. He is watching the ship for us. Oh, Luffy continued to eat. Zoro looked at the two thoughtfully, and didn't ask anything. Sha Chen explained a few words. Traveling with the pirate leader, but vowing to become a navy. It's a bit outrageous, this kid. Because of the cruel means Sha Chen had shown before, although he killed a Monka from beginning to end, he was not found by the navy as in the original book. After the three of them finished their meal, When they were leaving, they all turned their heads to look at one end of the street. There were several Marines pretending to buy things at a roadside stall. When he saw their sight, he lowered his head immediately. But the residents of the town were very enthusiastic. Seeing that they were about to leave, they enthusiastically gave gifts of thanks to Sha Chen and others. The Marines did not stop them. Surrounded by a group of small town residents, the three of them came to the place where the boat was parked before. Luffy looked around and didn't find the boat they had come to before. "Where's the boat? Where's my big boat?" "Oh, here." Sha Chen gently pushed his palm, and the water surface automatically parted, revealing the single-masted boat that had sunk to the bottom. "It sank. Why did it sink?" "Captain, who do you think broke the bottom of the boat with his head?" Sha Chen was speechless. Whoever saw this scene would not suspect Luffy. Luffy clapped his fists, showing a look of sudden enlightenment, and then he looked distressed. "Without a ship, how can we sail?" "Captain, look over there, aren't there? We are pirates, can't we just rob one?" Sha Chen raised his hand and pointed at the large and small ships anchored at the dock. Zoro narrowed his eyes and said nothing, but quietly clenched the Wado Ikimonji. "No, we can't rob." Luffy's attitude was very firm, and no one knew what he was insisting on. Zoro smiled. "Then spend money to buy it." "Captain, then take out your treasure." Luffy took out his trouser pockets and found only a few pitiful steel coins, a total of 400 Baileys. They had eaten in the restaurant before, and they didn't spend money, or Luffy didn't eat at all. There is no concept of spending money. This is how the windmill village used to be. Zoro had a dark face. He had no money either. The money he had before had been plundered by Barumber. Then they all looked at Sha Chen, who shrugged. "Don't look at me. I haven't received my salary this month yet, Captain. So, it's not too late for us to go back now and grab some from their base. It's all ill-gotten gains anyway." There were still 100,000 Baileys in Sha Chen's warehouse backpack, but he couldn't spend the money here. Because he was testing Luffy's bottom line and tolerance. Sure enough, Luffy's first thought was to refuse. After all, his grandfather was a Navy. If his grandfather knew that he had robbed the Navy base, he would definitely beat him up. At this thought, he couldn't help but hug his head, with a faint phantom pain. Then the three looked at the residents of the town who had gradually become silent. Facing their gazes, everyone subconsciously dodged, and some even ran away. You have to know that a ship that can sail in the ocean costs millions of berries. The small boat that Sha Chen, Luffy, and Kobe took before was dismantled from the Aurita pirate ship because of an emergency. It was originally used for landing near the coast. What should I do? How can I go to sea without a ship? Luffy held his head and thought about it for a long time without a good solution. Finally, he looked at Sha Chen fiercely. "Sha Chen, you are the deputy captain, hurry up and find a way to get a boat." Sha Chen rolled his eyes and suggested, "Why don't you two go wash dishes? As long as you wash fast enough, you can earn 10,000 berries a day." About a year later. "No, Sha Chen, right, believe it or not, I will chop you now." The two reacted very fiercely, and Zoro even ejected half of the blade. "Then go rob the Navy." Luffy still refused after repeating the old tune. Sha Chen felt that the foreshadowing was almost done, so he thought of a compromise and let Luffy grab a Navy lieutenant colonel with brown skin. "What are you going to do?" "We have already notified Vice Admiral Garp, he will be here soon." "You'd better surrender." Sha Chen, this little butterfly, finally started to cause a storm. Luffy was petrified when he heard the name, but Sha Chen grabbed his remaining 400 Baileys. Shang Shang took out another one and stuffed it into his pocket, and slapped the remaining 3 heavily into the hands of the lieutenant colonel. "Remember, we are renting, not robbing. That kawaii vice commander is coming, don't talk nonsense. It's reasonable to rent your main battleship for 300 days with these 300 Baileys." Sha Chen said, and a crazy screaming water gun condensed on his side. The lieutenant colonel swallowed the rejection that came to his mouth, and his eyelids jumped quickly. Then Sha Chen brought everyone to the target dock he had set long ago. There was a blue warship that was more than 30 meters long and more than 10 meters high. "That's it. Hey, there are people who volunteer to guard the warship for you. Take my shot." Sha Chen fired a water ball and blasted Kobe, who was about to speak, into the sea without causing him much harm. Sha Chen, you, Luffy's eyes moved. In fact, he had already been very indulgent and tolerant of Sha Chen's actions. But that didn't mean that he allowed Sha Chen to attack his friends at will. He raised his fist and was about to beat Sha Chen up. Captain, that kid is going to join the Navy at first glance. Sha Chen reminded in a deep voice. Luffy was silent for a moment. He pressed his straw hat, looked at Kobe who had surfaced, and jumped onto the deck in a flash. Let's go, guys. Yes, Captain. Sha Chen and Zoro smiled at each other and boarded the ship one after another. For the three of them, manipulating this big ship was a bit like a small horse pulling a big cart, but it didn't matter, Sha Chen had superpowers. Driven by his ability to control water, the big ship slowly left the port and sailed into the open sea. The three people on the boat can see that Kobe, who was shot down in the water before, was rescued by the Navy, and more Marines gathered at the port, watching them leave. In fact, the lieutenant colonel before was trying to scare Sha Chen and the others. They have not yet reported the news of Colonel Monka's death. Everyone salute. The Navy immediately stood at attention and saluted. Because our patrol was not good, it led to the invasion of pirates. Everyone is not allowed to eat for a day. From now on, we will train until the early morning. Yes, Lieutenant Colonel. Everyone understands that this is the time the Lieutenant Colonel has left for Sha Chen and the others to escape. After the early morning, they will report the news. After all, a colonel died in this base, and they have done their best to suppress it until this time. Sha Chen and the others are not ordinary people. They heard and saw it vaguely. After that, Zoro went to find a training room to practice without saying a word, while Luffy ran around the ship frantically to find something to eat. Only Sha Chen was left. Alas, what a hard life. Sha Chen first went to the mapping room to find a map of the entire East China Sea, found the location of Orange Town, then adjusted the sails and the course, and began to count the various materials on the ship. At the current speed, if Sha Chen does not use the ability to control water, they will arrive in Orange Town in 3 days. This is much shorter than the time it took Luffy and Zoro in the original book. After all, the two of them who were bad at finding their way around relied on the waves. It was a great fortune to be able to arrive in Orange Town alive. Sha Chen basically finished the statistics, beat Luffy severely, and put him in solitary confinement. Luffy was too good to eat. He had just finished counting a basket of apples, and there was not a single one left. Is your stomach a bottomless pit? When Sha Chen was done, it was already half a day later, and it was completely dark. Sha Chen stood by the rudder holding 2 barbells to exercise, adapting to his physical fitness that had increased by more than 50 times. Suddenly, he thought of something. Oh, I was delayed by Luffy, the idiot, again. It would have been better to just take Nami on board. Since leaving, Sha Chen felt vaguely that he had forgotten something very important. It was not until now that he remembered that Nami had also invaded the naval base in order to find the map of the Grand Line. However, the map had long been stolen by the Joker pirates, and a provocative letter was left behind, so Nami would look for the Joker pirates next. Forget it, some things cannot be forced, but in this case, should I stay on the sea for a few more days, or go directly to Kokoja village to wait for Nami after defeating Buggy the Clown? He thought about it and decided to go with the flow. Maybe they would meet Nami halfway. If some people are destined to become partners, they will inevitably reunite under the correction of the world line. In other words, Sha Chen felt that Luffy would definitely disagree with forcibly abducting people. He did not have the basic qualities of a pirate at all. After midnight, the panel made a ding sound. Congratulations to the host for signing in successfully and getting one chance to draw a lottery. Sign in. When did I sign in? Sha Chen asked. The plug-in did not respond as usual. However, the corners of his mouth opened involuntarily. The bottom line is cool. After all, he is not a person who is inclined to take risks, especially the horrible experience of death in his previous life, which has become his nightmare. Although he is now invincible, it can be seen from the fact that he directly uses a powerful big move that he is very cautious and must deprive the enemy of his ability to move at the first time. So if there is a choice, he still hopes to follow the path of the sword god of Shilpo. At this moment, he was thinking about whether to trick Luffy into strolling in the East China Sea for a while. Early the next morning, Luffy, Sha Chen's roar woke up the morning on the ship. Last night he had after trying, I found that I was the best cook on the ship. So the deputy captain had to take over this responsibility, and then he came in this morning to take a look. Oh my God, the food that was originally counted yesterday to be enough for 50 people to eat for a week, only half of it is left. It still can't be eaten directly, and there are only 5 kinds left: flour, raw rice, some vegetables similar to bitter melon, raw eggs and about 200 kilograms of pork. Sorry. Luffy and Zoro, who had just walked to the kitchen door, bowed together when they heard Sha Chen's words. Sha Chen subconsciously turned his eyes to Zoro. Oh my God, you also have a share. I ate 30 kilograms of food in one meal last night, and I thought I was full. I'm hungry, Sha Chen. As a result, Luffy's next sentence made Sha Chen so angry that his teeth itched, and he went over and punched Luffy in the head. He was beaten and flew out, but the other party stood up with a smile without any injury. As expected, his fighting ability was very stable. Wait for me, and we must find a chef next time we go to the island. I am the deputy captain. The other two agreed, and then Sha Chen used the cooking skills he learned from the master chef on the ship when he sailed on the ocean in his previous life. He directly used the very bitter melon as bitter melon. He simply used the remaining ingredients to make 6 large pot dishes. Can you eat it? It smells so good, Sha Chen. I don't think we need to find a chef at all. Shut up. Sha Chen was wearing an apron and waving a spoon in his hand, wishing he could hit Luffy on the head. This guy can't be at peace for a moment. Although Zoro has been silent, he has brought the barbell for exercise to the kitchen, and he is exercising while staring at the prepared meals. It is obvious where his mind is. After frying the last big pot of bitter melon and egg, Sha Chen took it and put it heavily on the kitchen table. Okay, let's start. A black shadow suddenly flashed in front of Sha Chen's eyes. The pile of steaks next to him just now, with the meat in the plate, was snatched away by Luffy and poured into his mouth. The whole person's mouth suddenly expanded more than 10 times. He chewed it twice and swallowed it. Sha Chen and Zoro were used to it, and they immediately started to snatch it. If they didn't snatch it, they would starve in the end. I don't know if Luffy's life is born, or taught by his grandfather. But he was calculating in his heart, wondering whether he should collect it from Luffy a few times. He believed that there would be a good harvest. But the size of the harvest was uncertain. After all, Luffy was the protagonist of this world. Now he was still very weak, and he had to make more preparations. In addition, although he grew very fast, there was still a big gap between him and Luffy and Zoro, and he needed someone to escort him. So let them go first. The ship slowly strolled on the sea for another day, not to mention the island. Not even a news bird was encountered. Sha Chen had basically adapted to his surging physique, and he was ready to collect further. Taking advantage of the moonlight, he jumped from the deck to the sea and stood steadily, as if walking on flat ground. There are still 13 times now. It will increase once after midnight, so collect 4 times, and the remaining 10 times will be left for Buggy the Clown. Then he reached out to touch the sea and silently recited collection. Collection successful. Congratulations to the host for obtaining a portion of pure water. Collection successful. Congratulations to the host for obtaining a piece of seastone ore. Collection successful. Congratulations to the host for obtaining a bird-shaped sea king. Sha Chen paused for a moment, and did not even show any attributes. Then he looked at the light ball, and his eyes widened at a glance. Although the light ball wrapped around this vivid sea king was still a hazy white light, when his eyes touched it, a piece of information came into his mind. This sea king is 5 kilometers long. 5 kilometers, what is this concept? The sea kings around Fishman Island are probably about this big. So is this thing under my control? Sha Chen stared at the bird-headed sea king creature in the light ball with burning eyes. It was like a turtle creature with a bird head and a long neck growing inside it, and there were circles of pink hair every other section of its neck. It has to be said that it is ugly. But quality is truth. If he summoned this thing, as long as he didn't encounter an enemy at the level of a lieutenant general in his headquarters, he would be able to walk around the entire East China Sea. But if it gets out of control and is summoned directly, they will be wiped out. Oh, forget it, let's save it first. Sha Chen put them in the warehouse, looking at the remaining 9 draws. How about a 10 draw later? A single draw can't produce a miracle, at least give me a guarantee with your 10 draw. This idea is very tempting, but in the end Sha Chen decided to draw only once. Forget it, let's do it again. If you want to become a strong man, you must first overcome your own desires. Collection successful. Congratulations to the host for gaining 50 points of physical fitness in the future. Oh my, complaining is really useful. Sha Chen was immediately happy, and then decisively manipulated the water flow to jump onto the deck. He would not draw today anyway. According to the principle of luck tide theory, it must have reached the peak at this time, and the next time would definitely be as bad as it could be. Then he happily added the 50 points of physical fitness. This time the feeling was more intense than before, and the heat flowed through his body, making Sha Chen couldn't help but let out a comfortable moan. His legs softened and he knelt on the ground, but his hands squeezed his thighs tightly. But the improvement of physical fitness and spirit was all round. He heard footsteps. He turned around and saw that it was Zoro. Is it not the right time for me to come? Zoro turned around and wanted to leave. After all, Sha Chen's posture made people think about it. Although Zoro was a road idiot, a sword idiot, he had already made preparations for going to sea, including but not limited to ships, money and common sense of life. Sha Chen understood instantly. You, don't get me wrong, I'm just growing up. I understand, we are all adults, you grow up slowly, I will come to replace you later. Zoro turned around and left without any drag. Sha Chen was anxious on the spot. Hey, Zoro walked faster. What's this? Sha Chen shook his head speechlessly, and simply ignored it, adjusting to sit cross-legged, waiting for the heat flow in his body to disappear. This incident also reminded him that if he collected a huge amount of attribute points in the future, he could not use them in battle. Otherwise, he would be killed if he was not careful. After a while, the heat flow flowing through his body was replaced by abundant power. Sha Chen moved around a little. He felt that he could now knock Tyson away with one punch. Then he picked up the barbell next to him and continued to exercise. He would adjust the course every time he exercised for a while. Later, Zoro came out and said he wanted to take over his duty, but Sha Chen decisively refused. Forget it. When he was resting during the day, he asked Zoro and Luffy to watch for him for a long time, and then the route deviated by about 172 degrees. The originally scheduled 3-day trip now added 1 day. In addition, adaptive training, Sha Chen did not forget to practice water control skills. When the Orange Island was in sight, his water control skills were also upgraded to level 2. With information reserves, practice more and you will be fine, it's really not difficult. The number of collections has also accumulated to 11 times. The range of water control skills upgraded to level 2 is larger, and the effect is more outstanding, but it still cannot control solid water. Are there many oranges in Orange Town? Luffy squatted on the turret at the front of the deck and looked far away. Although because of Sha Chen's presence, their living standards have suddenly improved from the primitive tribal era to the industrial era. But sailing on the sea is really boring. Zoro is better, because he has been forced to get used to it because of his natural road idiot attribute, but Luffy is born with a restless temperament. He doesn't practice every day, jumping around on the boat and making trouble everywhere. Sha Chen held a nautical chart in his hand, silently memorizing the routes and various data on it. There are no oranges in Orange Town, they are just called this name, they mainly produce wood, sulfur and gems. Then there must be meat. What's the matter? You are tired of my cooking so quickly. No, 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 as a pirate, how can you not eat meat? How dare you say that? When Sha Chen said this, he gritted his teeth. I shouldn't listen to your nonsense. That happened at noon on the second day of their voyage. Zoro found 2 bottles of rum from somewhere, and then Luffy saw it, and he shouted to have a banquet. It was said to celebrate the official establishment of the Straw Hat Pirates and the arrival of new members. Sha Chen thought this was not bad. So he made special preparations, and even went to the sea to catch some fish himself. However, while he was cooking, he accidentally stuffed a whole piece of smoked pork chop, the only protein left on their ship besides fish, into Luffy's stomach. And these days, Sha Chen also confirmed that he was just an ordinary person in the kitchen. Without further talent, his cooking speed was not as fast as the speed of these 2 big eaters. Except for the first day, Sha Chen used his force to intimidate Luffy. After the two of them understood his temper, they didn't care about it. It was just a couple of punches, which didn't hurt anyway. Especially Luffy said that pirates should be free and they could hold banquets whenever they wanted. They couldn't care so much. Anyway, it was his reason. At this moment, an explosion sounded on the island. Then a slightly reddish shell flew towards their big ship. Bang! Rubber rubber, rubber balloon. Luffy took a deep breath, his stomach expanded rapidly, and he planned to use his body to resist the bomb. Zoro also flicked the Wado Ikimonji with his fingers, ready to fire. Don't. But it was too late. Luffy jumped into the air and collided with the cannonball. Boom. The moment the buggy bomb collided with Luffy, it exploded immediately, setting off a huge flame. Sha Chen had no time to rescue him. Although he could mobilize the seawater for protection with a thought, if it hit Luffy, his devil fruit would lose its effect. This powerful buggy bomb might have killed Luffy directly. At this time, Luffy, who had taken the buggy bomb, was blown directly into the sea. I'll save Luffy, be careful, Sha Chen said and jumped directly. Zoro hurriedly stretched out his hand to stop him. You are also a devil fruit ability user. When he saw Sha Chen standing steadily on the sea, he was relieved and carefully alerted the direction of the island. Looking at Luffy, who was sinking very fast, Sha Chen gently hooked his palm, and the sea current surged, rolling Luffy up, and then he grabbed Luffy and rushed to the ship under the push of the water. But at the same time, several buggy tanks also flew over from the direction of Orange Town. I don't remember that this buggy shell can be fired continuously in the original book. Sha Chen was shocked and didn't care about getting on the boat. Looking at Zoro, who was ready to go, Sha Chen urged a stream of water to roll him down, and then quickly ran away. Sha Chen, what are you doing? What? Of course I'm saving your life. Don't you see that this shell is different from ordinary shells? Sha Chen said unhappily. The conventional shells used by the Navy are lead shells, which can be easily cut by a swordsman with successful training, without reaching the level of swordsmanship of cutting iron. But this kind of shell made by buggy exploded at the first touch, and its power was terrifying. Sha Chen made several water shields in front of him, but he could still feel the heat wave. It's outrageous. Driven by the water flow, they retreated hundreds of meters in a blink of an eye, and the warship behind them was also blown into wreckage by buggy shells. I rented this. How is Luffy? Zoro focused his attention on Luffy, who was like a soft noodle and was held under Sha Chen's arm. He's lucky. He didn't bleed. He was probably just knocked unconscious. Let's go to the island to see if there is a doctor. Sha Chen knew that Orange Town was now occupied by Buggy the Clown. But Luffy and Zoro didn't know, so he couldn't tell them directly. However, according to the plot of the original work, there are still residents in the town, so finding a doctor is not a problem. Sha Chen turned around and ran towards the pier, but just as he arrived at the pier, a huge purple-hulled brigantine came around from the north of the Orange Town island. From the red-nosed clown's skull painted on the sail, Sha Chen knew that this was Buggy the Clown's pirate ship parked on the other side of the island. He didn't expect them to catch up so quickly. Zoro, who had just stepped onto the pier, drew out 3 samurai swords. It's the Buggy pirates, Captain Buggy, bounty 15 million Baileys, you take Luffy to find a doctor, I'll stop them. You can't stop them, I'm the vice captain, Sha Chen said, throwing Luffy to him, and rushed towards the Buggy pirates on the waves. Looks like I have to play solo today. But as long as it's on the sea, a mere devil fruit user is nothing. Zoro gritted his teeth, looked at the unconscious Luffy, and took Luffy to see a doctor very rationally. On the Baikudopu. Captain, someone is flying on the sea. Is it true? Oh my god, what the hell? Get the giant cannon ready. Before, Buggy, who pretended to be a big boss in the town square, was leisurely watching his circus perform for him, and suddenly his men reported that they found a Navy ship heading towards Orange Island. They had just captured Orange Town a few days ago, and they didn't expect the Navy to come so soon, so Buggy the Clown immediately ordered to board the ship and attack. After all, there was only one ship, and the patrol of the General Navy branch would be at least 3 ships in a shift. Under normal circumstances, Buggy the Clown would choose to run away when seeing this situation, but today, he felt that he could give it a try. He wanted to teach the Navy a lesson and let them know that they were not easy to provoke. Although his main hobby was to dig for treasure, the unspoken rule among the pirate groups was that whoever had a higher bounty, whoever had a stronger strength, had a greater deterrent power. Then after they started the first attack, they found that the first shell was blocked by a strange human whose belly suddenly swelled like a balloon. And as the ship got closer and closer, they found that there was no navy on it. So Buggy the Clown immediately understood that this navy ship should have been stolen by other pirate groups. That would be even less stressful. He, the great pirate Buggy, could easily add a brilliant victory over a certain established navy to his pirate resume, battle record. But out of caution, Buggy chose to fire multiple guns. The Buggy bombs blasted the navy ship into wreckage in just a moment. Instead of returning, he called his minions to salvage some treasure. The result was the scene in front of him. They found someone flying over the water. Buggy the Clown carefully hid in the captain's room. He was inexplicably panicked. The other party was obviously a capable person, but he could fly on the sea. This strength was probably extraordinary. He had hit a wall. However, he personally issued the attack order, and it was too late to regret it now. So he commanded his men to turn the muzzle and attack Sha Chen fiercely. He was very confident in the power of the Buggy bomb. Bang! One shell after another exploded around Sha Chen. His best choice was actually to dive into the sea to avoid it, but he knew that the capable people who had eaten the devil fruit were afraid of the sea. He couldn't dive into the sea unless he killed all these people. However, considering the threat of red-haired Shanks, he was not sure whether Shanks would avenge him after Buggy died. He was not a child, and he would not naively believe that the man of the sea, since he had chosen to run towards freedom, he had to bear the consequences of life or death. If things were really that simple, there would not be so many pirate alliances, and there would not be 4 emperors. The training in the past 2 days had an excellent effect. His agility was improved by more than 10 times. With the skill of controlling water, he could walk on flat ground no matter how chaotic the waves were. Buggy's shells were fired at a limited frequency. Sha Chen quickly came to 30 meters away from the Baikudopu, touched the sea with both hands, and grabbed it up fiercely. Who's going to build the water-style super dam? Instantly, the sea seemed to tilt with Sha Chen's ability, and the waves were getting higher and higher, from 1 meter to 10 meters. In the blink of an eye, they continued to rise, reaching more than 50 meters, and the shadow had already covered the elephant head bow of the Baikudopu. The pirate minions and cadres on the deck were already scared to death, and dared not move. As for Buggy the Clown, he was so scared that his body was torn into pieces and he ran around everywhere. He really provoked a tough guy. How could such a person be in the East China Sea? As the deputy captain, Mochi reacted and called the helmsman to turn, but it was too late. Thousands of tons of waves easily swallowed and crushed the pirate ship. The huge waves broke the reefs on the shore, and even destroyed a large area of the trees on the shore. Sha Chen half crouched on the undulating sea, panting. This was the limit he could reach at present. The activation time is still a bit slow, so I can only deal with the clown Buggy. Although he easily defeated the entire Joker pirates, Sha Chen was not satisfied. Defeat the Buggy pirates and get 20 draws. Chapter 11. Oh, so many. Although it has only been a few days, Sha Chen has already figured out many rules of the collection technique. Defeating enemies weaker than oneself and obtaining the threshold of the number of draws is constantly increasing. At the beginning, 10 people were enough, then 20 people, and now it is estimated that more than 50 people are possible. The depreciation rate is faster than that of the US dollar. It is estimated that when it reaches a certain level, it will not be given. So his original expectation was that defeating the clown Buggy pirates would give 14 or 15 times, but he did not expect that there would be 5 more times. After a short rest, he recovered. Sha Chen started looking for spoils. The sea was full of the wreckage of the Baikudopu pirate ship and the floating corpses of pirates. Or fainting Buggy pirates members. Sha Chen killed those minions one by one. They were not good things, and there was no psychological pressure at all. Not long after, he found the tamers of the clown pirates, Mochi and Lion Licky. These guys were still lucky, they just fainted. In addition, there are a lot of treasures and Buggy shells. The harvest is not bad, but he did not find Kabaji and Buggy the Clown. He didn't drown. It's possible. After all, the sea stone component in the seawater is a natural enemy of devil fruit users. Sha Chen thought about it and didn't care. Anyway, now in the entire East China Sea, except Buggy and Garp, who comes back from time to time, no one knows Buggy's true identity. As a member of the Straw Hat Pirates, and Shanks, one of the 4 emperors, has placed the future of the world on Luffy, I think even if he knows, he will not kill me. Even when he knows, he is already strong enough to be on par with him, or even surpass him. As the saying goes, with the plug-in in hand, the world is mine. The previous fear was just due to the thinking inertia of the time travel crowd, just understand it. Sha Chen walked towards the shore with his trophies. He found a dry place, lined them up, looked around to make sure there was no one around, and began to collect slowly. While testing and calculating, he went there 6 times in total, and then stopped. The cost effectiveness was too low. In total, he obtained 5 points of physical fitness, 15 points of spirit, 2 balls of lion hair, a portion of pure water, and a lion skin. Well, he picked the last one himself. After all, the lion niche that he had high hopes for did not contribute anything to him except hair. This purple-haired persimmon skin made into a carpet must be very stylish. I will put it in my vice captain's room in the future. After destroying the corpse, Sha Chen rolled up the lion fur, found a wooden stick, and strode towards the center of the town. When he came to the main street in the center of the town while chewing a pear, he heard a clanging sound of metal collision from a long distance. He took a look and saw that it was the one-wheeled swordsman Kabaji who he had not found before. The other party held a weapon shaped like a rapier and fought fiercely with Zoro. There was a lot of back and forth, but Sha Chen was confused. Zoro, when did you become so lame? Zoro heard Sha Chen's voice and looked back. He had been used to Sha Chen's occasional words that he didn't understand, but this was not a good thing. He was also very ashamed. The moment he turned around, Sha Chen saw a wound on Zoro's abdomen. So this guy was still tricked by someone. The strong inertia of this plot is really hard to guard against. This also made Sha Chen feel out of place, as if there was some kind of gap between him and this world. After seeing Sha Chen, Kabaji wanted to run away. First, he hadn't heard the explosion of Buggy's shells for a while, and the ground of the entire island had shaken before, as if there was an earthquake, which was very abnormal. Secondly, Sha Chen was very familiar with the fur on the stick he was holding. If Lion Licky was dead, it meant that the others were not in good condition either. He was originally sent by Buggy the Clown to collect taxes in the town. He unexpectedly met Zoro and Luffy outside a clinic. He saw that they were not from the town and attacked them immediately. Unexpectedly, Zoro's strength should not be underestimated. He actually fought with him until now. You know, he is a pirate with a bounty of 6 million Baileys, and he is also a well-known figure in the East China Sea. Do you want me to help? Crunch. Sha Chen bit the pear with a big mouthful, and the juice overflowed, which was extremely sweet. Zoro was very upset and said, no. Sha Chen threw the fur on the ground as a cushion and watched the two fight. Kabaji was already distracted by Sha Chen's arrival, and gradually fell into a disadvantage. After performing an acrobatic move, he rode on a unicycle and wanted to escape, but Zoro suddenly attacked with a move of 3 swords, Demon Slash, head down. Where's Luffy? Sha Chen stood up and went over. In the pet food store, huh? Zoro panted for a long time, then took out a bandage from the huge green belt and wrapped it around himself. Didn't I ask you to take Luffy to the clinic? What pet store? Sha Chen asked knowingly, and stretched out his hand to press on Cabbage, who was still panting. The latter suddenly attacked, and shot a flying knife at Sha Chen's head like a last gasp. Sha Chen had been on guard against this sinister guy for a long time, and a water shield was formed in the blink of an eye. After blocking the dagger, he pounced directly on Cabbage, and deliberately adjusted the color of the layer of water covering it, directly covering his entire body, but from the outside, it was full of spiral turbulence. Sha Chen put one hand on the water curtain, actually touching Cabbage's body, and at the same time launched the collection technique, directly a 3 combo. Collection is successful. Congratulations on getting 1 point of physical fitness, 1 wheel swordsmanship, Kabaji's telescope. Rubbish, Sha Chen complained in his heart, feeling that his luck today was not very good. Could it be that the harvest the day before yesterday was too big? He simply stopped collecting and directly crushed Kabaji into pieces. Zoro took a deep look at Sha Chen. His vice captain was really ruthless, but his strength was also really strong. It's a pity that he is not a swordsman, otherwise he would definitely have a good fight with him. Then the two walked towards the pet food store on the next street. Woof woof woof. Really, I like to eat big bones and meat too. Woof woof, woof. You were right. Those guys who don't let us eat meat are the most annoying. Woof, woof woof. The little white dog who was still communicating with Luffy in a friendly manner suddenly ran over and bit Luffy's trouser leg. Well, sorry, I didn't say uncle. Sha-Chen and Zoro, who were standing not far away, looked at each other silently, and the expressions on their faces were hard to describe. But Sha-Chen understood what was going on. This should be Luffy's passive ability to listen to the voices of all things. Very enviable. The protagonist is amazing. Zoro suddenly thought of something and asked, has he always been like this? Sha-Chen shrugged his shoulders and pointed to his head, the child's brain develops later. The two did not shy away, and Luffy naturally heard it. He turned his head and shouted with a grin, Sha-Chen, Zoro, come here quickly, Cuckoo invited us to his house for dinner, there is a lot of meat to eat. Home, doghouse, why don't I have this impression? That's right, this is not the one-sided world in the anime. Sha-Chen thought to himself and said, Zoro, you go with him first, and find a doctor to check your injuries. I'll go to the center of the town to see if there are still some remaining pirates there. Sha-Chen left after saying that. Zoro did not refuse Sha-Chen's kindness. When Sha-Chen arrived at the circus in the town center square, there was no one except a few unlucky guys who fell to the ground and were knocked unconscious by someone. He moved his ears and vaguely heard the sound of boxes being moved in the huge circus tent in the middle. What is this? A second later, his eyes lit up slightly and he remembered a pair of car lights. He took 2 steps at a time and went over. The light inside was not sufficient. This was deliberately created by Buggy the Clown to show his tall and mighty image. Then he noticed the slender figure. The other party just found the nautical chart of the Grand Line that she had been thinking about. After unfolding it to confirm, I found it, I finally found it. Nami was very happy. Just as she was about to hide the nautical chart, she suddenly felt a warm breath coming from behind her ears. Grand Line, are you going here? Nami shuddered immediately and dodged to avoid it. But it was too late. A stream of water appeared out of nowhere and bound her. Don't tell me, this way of binding was quite artistic. You are, Nami was horrified. She had already recognized who this person was. Sha-Chen took the lead in stealing the ball and walked around her with a smile. Don't say you don't know me, Miss Nami. Then he sat down on Buggy's throne, soft and comfortable, crossed his legs, and looked at Nami with a smile on his face. Nami's heart was already in turmoil. She didn't know when she had leaked her name. You know, when she was looking for good people to sponsor her, she used her stage name. She also got a nickname of a thief cat. Few people knew her real name, except her mortal enemy. At the same time, she secretly exerted force to try to break free from the other party's restraints, but the water flow was very strange. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't break free. Instead, her clothes kept getting wet. Even with Nami's hot temper, she couldn't help but blush and take a long breath. Nice to meet you, Mr. Sha-Chen. How happy are you? Sha-Chen didn't play by the rules at all. Nami, who was just ready to fool people, suddenly crashed. Anyway, I'm very happy. He continued with a stiff face. Also, can you please let go first? It's very uncomfortable. But I'm very angry now. Nami's face turned pale. Although she acted unruly, disguised herself in various identities, and came into contact with many dirty things, she still valued those things of girls. Now she has not experienced Aaron's deception, has not realized the evil of human nature, and her heart has not undergone transformation. Don't mess around. Nami pretended to retreat in panic, and she found that Sha-Chen did not stop her. When he was about to reach the door, he suddenly saw 2 white gloves holding short knives and daggers, and Bucky's head suddenly rushed out from behind Sha-Chen's seat, aiming at Sha-Chen's throat and stabbing Sha-Chen's chest. Sha-Chen, go to hell, ha ha ha. The clown Bucky's face was ferocious, and the blood in his eyes was redder than his nose. Although he treated most of his men as tools that could be consumed at will, after so many years, even if they were just stones, they should be warmed up. As a result, the team he had worked hard to build was defeated in an instant. Bucky was directly overwhelmed. He originally just planned to come back and secretly take away his treasure and find a place to hide it. He also expected that Sha Chen and others would not stay on this island for long. Unexpectedly, just when he sneaked in from the back of the circus, he heard the conversation between Sha Chen and the little girl. Moreover, Sha Chen's attention was focused on the former. If he suddenly attacked, Sha Chen would definitely not be able to react. But Sha Chen's face was not panicked at all. He had heard the voice long ago. You know, the improvement of physical and mental fitness is all round. A thick layer of spiral water shield wrapped him up. Just when Bucky's 2 daggers were halfway inserted, they were twisted to one side by the fierce vortex. Bucky's strength was very weak, and his weapons were taken away in an instant. How is it possible? Bucky, who had seen the top strong men in the sea, should not have made such a mistake. He was just so stupid. At this moment, Sha Chen felt that the unreasonable part of the original plot might not be the powerful correction power of the plot, but Bucky was really so stupid. Especially at this time, his whole head had flown in front of him, with a look of horror on his face, and he even forgot to dodge. A gray-white water column knocked Bucky's head out, and then his hands and limbs that were broken into several pieces were all wrapped up in a water ball. Then after mixing them in a huge water ball, Bucky's body automatically spliced together because the ability of the devil fruit was affected. Bucky was still holding on, but as the water pressure continued to rise and the vortex strengthened, Bucky could no longer hold on and fainted. Afterwards, Sha Chen looked at the door of the tent, and Nami had already run away. He couldn't do multiple things perfectly now. But his spirit reached 37.2, and he believed that he only needed a period of training to master it thoroughly. But it was better to leave. Sha Chen didn't want to expose his collection technique to others. Although in this world with devil fruits, even the weirdest abilities can be explained, but it's best not to expose them. Next, let me see, as the previous crew member of the Pirate King, what surprises can you bring me? Sha Chen rubbed his hands. He wanted to get too many things from Bucky. Whether it was the other party's weird luck, the split fruit, or his various memories and knowledge about the Grand Line. This is very important for Sha Chen, including the future adventures of the Straw Hat Pirates. After all, Sha Chen did read One Piece, but he was not sure whether this was a comic world or an anime world. In addition, these information carriers could not reveal all the information of a world. When he started, he hesitated for a moment. After all, judging from the situation of collecting from other people in the Buggy Pirates before, his luck today did not seem to be very good. How about trying again tomorrow? No, a man should face the challenge head-on. Moreover, according to the theory of luck tide, if the luck was bad before, the luck must be good now. Sha Chen found a reason to convince himself. Look at the number of collections, there are still 22 left. But defeating the clown Buggy did not gain new collections. It seems that it has been counted in the previous team defeat, which means that one person cannot lose continuously. Fortunately, there is no limit to the number of collections, otherwise it would be too disgusting. However, facing this big man who can be called a pirate legend, even in the mouth of the Navy Marshal Sengoku, Sha Chen paid enough attention to it. He specially summoned clean water to wash the dirt on his hands that did not exist in the first place. Collect 10 consecutive. Collect successfully. Congratulations to the host for obtaining. Collection successful. Congratulations to the host for obtaining a total of 5 points of physical fitness, a total of 20 points of spirit, 1 clown's red nose, 2 clown blades, 3 pure waters, and observation hockey LV 1 inch. Good news, a big batch of goods, observation hockey. Bad news, no golden light special effects, well, mainly because Sha Chen's most desired ability to split into pieces did not come out. In his previous life, Sha Chen had read a post where someone analyzed that Buggy's split fruit might be related to the reconstruction of the entire world. Because they analyzed that after the split fruit awakens, it can turn the split itself into the split outside world. The development ceiling is very high, and from a realistic point of view, Oda gave Buggy so many roles, it is unlikely that it is just for fun. Sha Chen looked at the remaining 22 collection times, and he decided to do another 10 consecutive times. 10 consecutive collections. Collection successful. congratulations on obtaining 20 points of physical fitness, 30 points of spirit, 1 clown blue hair, 1 clown cape, 1 clown top, 1 clown trousers, 1 pair of clown boots. Detected the clown's red nose and clown blade, synthesized into a clown suit, effect, 1 click change, permanent. This is too outrageous. Sha Chen's mouth twitched with anger. This time the harvest was worse than the previous effect. He almost stripped her naked, but she didn't even get the most critical things. Rather than saying that his luck was bad, it's better to say that this rubbish's luck was too outrageous. He really deserves to be the owner of Overlord Luck. If I collect from you again in the future, I'll be a dog. Sha Chen was furious, and he didn't want the fruit of shattering. He really lost a lot this time. Even if he went to the sea to draw directly, the harvest would not be as rubbish as it is now. He summoned a stream of water, tied up Buggy and took him to where Luffy and the others were, and absorbed the attribute points and observation hockey LV1 that he had just drawn. Observation hockey. He tried this new skill, and a special feeling arose in his heart. The whole person calmed down involuntarily, comparable to the sage mode, and then the sounds within a kilometer radius suddenly came together. Hiss, so noisy, is it just the sound? It should be because I just mastered it, but, is Zoro lost? He gave up the experiment and took the initiative to find Zoro. Although the other party didn't say anything, it was clear that he was worried. Sha Chen smiled slightly and roughly explained to him what happened in the tent before. Girl, I think I saw the orange-haired girl you mentioned before, over there. Zoro pointed to the southeast, and then pointed to the northwest uncertainly. Which way is it? Sha Chen was still thinking about doing business with Nami. Before, he had focused his main energy on Buggy, but he let him run away, so he had to catch him before he went out to sea. Seeing that he was questioned by himself, Zoro was angry. Finally, he turned around and said to Sha Chen, "Follow me," and walked directly to the west. That's the mountainous area of Orange Town, not the dock area at all. Sha Chen opened his mouth and asked, "You haven't been out for a long time, have you?" Zoro paused, said, long-winded, and continued to walk west. "Okay, forget it if we can't find it, let's go find Luffy first, I brought him some gifts." Sha Chen called Zoro. Zoro looked at Sha Chen with empty hands and Buggy in the form of boiled eggs without a nose, and he understood that the so-called gift should be this. After being taken to the clinic by Cuckoo before hearing from them, Buggy's evil deeds in this town, they killed many people, robbed a lot of money, and even enjoyed shelling the town. Even if Luffy stopped, he wanted to beat him up at the first time. Then Zoro bandaged himself hastily and ran out, but Zoro, who was chasing after him, got lost. This incident was quite embarrassing to talk about. Sha Chen finally heard the whole story from Zoro. He felt speechless and thought that the town was so small. How did you get lost? This probably can't be explained by being directionally challenged. You must have been cursed by the world. Alas, it turned out that it was unrealistic to expect Zoro to lead the way. There were only a few streets in Orange Town. After turning around twice in a row, Sha Chen remembered most of the streets in his mind, and he had already looked at the location of the clinic. But Zoro just turned around from the street in front, and swore that it was in front. He grabbed Zoro's shoulder and pointed in the direction of the clinic. He almost couldn't help but turn on his observation color. Luffy also happened to be appeared from the other end of the street, and Nami appeared with him. But Luffy is now a coolie, carrying a big bag, which is bulging inside. It is clearly the treasures that Sha Chen did not have time to take away before. Nami, you really value money. To be honest, Sha Chen did not want to use the treasures to lure Nami. He thought Nami should not be so brainless, but the reality is more outrageous than he thought. Nami actually went back. After Nami saw Sha Chen, she immediately hid behind Luffy, pointed at herself, and gestured to say something. Sha Chen, you said, he is my partner, why should I beat him? Treasure, didn't we agree? You only need to escort me to the dock safely, and then I will give you half of me. Aren't you a pirate? He will definitely stop us. Nami said. She naturally knew the relationship between Luffy and Sha Chen. But she felt that it was unlikely that she could leave Orange Town smoothly by herself, so she decided to find a helper to escort her away. According to his inherent impression of the pirate group, the captain is the strongest on a pirate ship and has absolute suppression power over other crew members. I am a pirate, but Nami, partners should be able to trust their backs and lives. Luffy taught Nami a lesson with a serious face. I hope you can believe in Sha-Chen as much as you believe in me. I swear to you in the name of the captain that they will never let you down. They are the best partners. I know, I don't mean anything else, but, wait a minute, partner, you mean me. Nami was stunned, pointed her finger at her face, and looked incredible. Yes, haven't you agreed to join my pirate group? When did you agree? To me, when did you say you wanted to join? Before she finished, Sha-Chen and Zoro had come close. Sha-Chen raised her lips and said, Ms. Nami, how many times has this happened? You stole my things again. Captain, when you encounter hostile pirates, you can just take action, right? Nami was silent for a moment, and looked at the clown buggy floating behind Sha-Chen, who had completely changed his appearance. She took a few steps back with a slight tremor in her heart, and then she hurriedly said, Where? I'm not afraid that you, Mr. Sha-Chen, will be tired, so I brought the treasure back for you. Don't be polite, don't thank me, we are all on the same boat. Nami, didn't you say that this treasure is yours? You will give me half. Luffy, who rarely spoke serious words, asked in disbelief. For Luffy, adventure treasure hunting is indispensable, and it is also an important goal for Luffy to go to sea. As a result, Nami suddenly punched Luffy's head, and a bulge grew up at a speed visible to the naked eye. Luffy screamed and hugged his head, squatting on the ground and wailing. Here it comes, the iron fist of Miss Nami, a genius navigator whose combat value cannot be measured. Sha-Chen's eyes flickered slightly. He especially wanted to know what kind of surprising things he could collect from Nami. This undisguised passion made Nami hug her chest involuntarily, and pulled Luffy up to block her in front of her. Looking at her, she was really afraid of Sha-Chen. Zoro also had a thoughtful look on his face. These days, he has fully understood Luffy's strength and the ability of his rubber fruit. Logically speaking, what he feared least was boxing. This could not hurt his rubber body at all, because Zoro had no concept of domineering at the moment. So he thought that the only way to defeat Luffy was kendo, and under the guidance of his second master, the ghost energy he mastered would inevitably become a killer move against such opponents. But what happened to this weak-looking Nami? Sha-Chen waved his hand and summoned a stream of water to roll towards the big package containing treasures. As expected, Nami pounced on it like a kitten protecting food. The water flow he directly controlled circled Nami and the package, but did not touch her body. Nami looked at the other party's playful smile and racked her brains to find a reason. She could swear to God that it was a completely instinctive reaction just now. This, Nami stuttered, and the dust collector smiled. Miss Nami, what do you want to do? All the captured items should be publicly owned, Captain Luffy, don't you think so? Nami was also quite quick-witted. This rule does exist in the pirate group. But in fact, some would be kept privately. Well, I think this time it was all Sha-Chen himself, Luffy said thoughtfully. He liked treasures, but he was not obsessed with them. He looked stupid, but he could tell the difference between right and wrong. But before he finished speaking, Nami punched him. It hurts, why did you hit me again? Captain, think about it again. Luffy vaguely saw some kind of fire in Nami's eyes. But Luffy couldn't do this at all. He looked at Sha-Chen pitifully. The latter sighed, thinking that the previous ship was destroyed again, and Luffy would definitely not rob other people's ships. I've taken note of what Miss Nami said. We just happen to need a ship of our own. Nami came immediately, her eyes sparkling, and she raised her hand high. I know that the village of Zailuobu, which is only a day's sail from here, is said to have the headquarters of the best shipbuilders in the East China Sea. Their shipbuilding company is very famous throughout the East China Sea. We can go there. Nami promised solemnly. In fact, in his opinion, as long as the money falls into his hands, he can't run away. Really, I want a big ship. Luffy immediately became energetic. His hands expanded rapidly, and even the ability of the rubber fruit was unconsciously pushed up, almost wrapping the entire street. At that time, when the windmill village went out to sea, it was a small boat given by the villagers, and it was scrapped not long after going out to sea. He also survived by hiding in a wine barrel. It must be said that this protagonist's halo is awesome. If it were an ordinary person, he would have drowned long ago. As for Zoro, he just hugged his shoulders and said nothing. Although it was only a few days, he saw that Sha Chen was the most reliable person on the ship. Sha Chen did not question Nami, and it was obvious that he also knew the news. After that, they came to the clinic and bandaged Zoro's wound again. The townspeople who got the news also came out of hiding, and some came to thank Sha Chen and his friends. However, after learning some information about Buggy, Luffy's face was gloomy, his back to the door, his eyes were as big as copper bells, and he exuded a faint imposing aura, which made the townspeople unconsciously shut their mouths and no longer dared to point fingers or demand the execution of Buggy. The reason for all this was that Sha Chen used a piece of news he had accidentally learned that the pirate Buggy was once a partner of Shanks. And Shanks can be said to be Luffy's savior and navigator. It was he who led Luffy to go to sea as a pirate since he was a child and aspired to become the great ambition of the Pirate King. Moreover, although Shanks' red hair pirates are pirates, they have never committed arson, murder, and looting, at least that's the version Shanks told Luffy. For Luffy, Shanks and his crew are the real, free people who yearn for the sea and adventure that he imagines. He also wants to be such a person. So he has always strictly required himself with certain standards. In fact, it can be seen from the original work that the Straw Hat Pirates and the Red Hair Pirates have great similarities in many places. To a certain extent, Luffy has copied the construction model of the Red Hair Pirates. In the clinic, Sha Chen sat on the sofa with his arms around his chest, and his eyes occasionally glanced at Nami, who was shaking slightly. She didn't expect that this Buggy had such a big background. It's ridiculous that she was thinking about stealing Buggy's things before. As for Zoro, he was full of doubts, looking at Buggy who was still unconscious. This guy actually had a relationship with the four emperors and had once are they the partners of the four emperors. As for whether they were once crew members on the One Piece ship, Sha Chen did not say this. Luffy at this stage should not know either, Sha Chen was just guessing this. After all, when he traveled through time, Luffy had just finished beating Kaido. Who knows if there will be other patches later. But they are all waiting for Luffy to make a decision. Sha Chen, wake him up, I want to beat him up. Luffy punched the ground hard, and a lot of cracks appeared on the fine wooden floor. Obviously, he was really angry. He felt that Buggy had tarnished the honor of the pirates. As you wish, Captain, Sha Chen said with a smile. He summoned a ball of water and hit Buggy's face. Because his nose was gone, the water flowed in without any hindrance and woke him up directly. Echu, who is it? Interfering with my sweet dream. This guy is really stupid. He can't tell the reality at this time. The next second, he saw the situation clearly, and the experience of being defeated before came to his mind. He subconsciously reached behind him, as if to take out his throwing knife. Unfortunately, there was nothing. Now he was wearing a thin white t-shirt and beach pants. What's going on? Where are my clothes? Buggy was so scared that his eyes flew out. At this moment, the progress of his ability development of the split fruit was at least 5 points higher. Then he found more things wrong, touched his smooth, hairless head, and the red nose that he once thought was annoying. It's gone, it's all gone, what did you do to me? Buggy was terrified, and his body was like a building block, split into dozens of pieces of different sizes. The townspeople who were watching outside were so scared that they retreated again and again when they saw this scene. Some even ran away directly, shouting that the monster was coming. Baki, I'm going to hit you. I don't know if it was a deliberate reminder. Luffy's fist quickly extended backwards, randomly knocking away the door frame and a few lucky townspeople, then quickly retracted and punched in front of Buggy. Who are you? We an %. Buggy only had time to say a few unclear words before he was smashed by Luffy's punch, and many body tissues flew out directly. At this moment, the development of his fruit ability has increased by at least 5%. Buggy is a good man who will not suffer a loss in front of him, especially when he noticed Sha Chen, who just looked playful but had no desire to attack. He knew that he could not stay here for long. Although he didn't know why they woke him up and even let go of the restraints, he only wanted to escape now. I am the man who wants to become the Pirate King. Luffy attacked Buggy like a storm. Buggy stopped immediately, as if he had pressed the pause button, and looked at Luffy with an inexplicable expression. A minute later, the entire clinic and several houses around it were smashed. Buggy's body was also blown away, and no one knew where it went. Luffy took a long breath. He really tried his best just now, and his physical strength was severely depleted. White smoke was even coming out of his body, and he was almost forced to enter the second gear mode. Even if Buggy has the ability to be torn into pieces, most of his body tissues were severely bleeding. Even if he fought, he would be seriously injured. Let's go, it's time for us to set off. Sha Chen looked at the townspeople who were watching from a distance, but were afraid and disgusted, and felt a little bored. Zoro immediately followed. Nami also looked at the ruins and said nothing. She was compassionate to ordinary people, but this was limited to the Kokoja village. Finally, they boarded Nami's boat at the dock and set off directly to Zailuobu village. Of course, some food was prepared before that, which was essential. After arriving on the ship, Luffy continued to talk about his ideas for the new ship as if nothing had happened before. Sha Chen also took a rare break. He poured a glass of rum and came to the upper platform. It was also the position of the rudder, and Nami was steering the rudder. The latter immediately perked up and looked at the man in front of him carefully. "What are you going to do?" "Hey, I'm the deputy captain, respect me a little, okay?" Sha Chen took a sip of wine and leaned on the railing. "Yes, then, the deputy captain, I don't know if you have any instructions." Nami squeezed out a smile on her face. "It's the same question you didn't answer before. Nami, you have stolen from me several times." "No, don't wrongly accuse a good person. We are all in the same boat, why bother about these things?" Nami argued, but for some reason, Sha Chen's eyes suddenly became extremely deep, making her shut up involuntarily. "Moral blackmail me. We are pirates, what morality?" Sha Chen continued the previous topic. "I remember it very clearly, once on the pirate ship of Alrada, once at the 153 Naval Base, and once at the circus in Orange Town. There is a saying in our hometown, called 3 times, once more than 3 times." Sha Chen's voice was leisurely, and he paused deliberately. Nami's hairs all stood up, looking at the other party's white teeth. "What are you going to do?" "Do it." Sha Chen's reaction was completely instinctive. After all, he had been sailing on the sea in his previous life, and he would lose the network from time to time, so he had to find something else to kill time. So he was originally very pure and healthy, but his mind was polluted by those unscrupulous teammates. But Nami didn't understand, this joke doesn't exist in this world. Of course it's to collect debts, so how are you going to repay it? This sentence stimulated Nami's sensitive nerves, and her face immediately darkened, considering the outrageous gap in strength between her and Sha Chen. He glanced at it, and was crazy on the splint, drawing with a drawing, and I don't know what Luffy was doing, and Zoro who was exercising next to him and didn't pay any attention to this side. There was some despair in my heart. I really got on a pirate ship. "I will pay you back, but you have to give me some time." "I, Nami, will keep my word." "Okay, after all, we are partners on the same boat, so I won't make it difficult for you. Although I don't know how much you have gained, I will round it off and take an average of 100 million Baileys." "Ah," Nami opened her mouth involuntarily, and her sensitive nerves immediately broke. Zoro, who had been training, glanced over here. If he remembered correctly, all the captured goods would be public in the future, and then he continued to do his own thing. "Go to hell." A stream of hot tears flowed from Nami's eyes, and she punched Sha Chen's head, but how could Sha Chen let her succeed easily? Holding a rum glass in his hand, he dodged easily like a top dancer. When Nami drew out his weapon, Sha Chen summoned a stream of water and trapped Nami in a very artistic posture. Nami struggled, but to no avail. Apart from completely soaking her clothes, the water flow lifted up the short sleeves on her left arm, revealing the blue tattoo of the Fishman Pirates. "Hey, this logo. Shut up, shut up." Nami was desperate. She no longer thought about breaking free, but tried her best to cover up the logo that represented humiliation and hatred. But Sha Chen's control of the water flow was becoming more and more profound. How could she do it? Then Nami watched Sha Chen getting closer and closer. Her pupils contracted and then opened. She no longer resisted and murmured, "Please, please don't." Because of some special reasons. The Fishman Pirates were not well known in the East China Sea. After all, the Navy wanted to win over Jinbei, one of the 7 warlords of the sea. There were also 16 branches of rat colonels cooperating. Anyone who knew the fishmen pirates knew how cruel they were. Nami was very worried that Sha Chen would expose this news. After all, because of the influence of the fishmen on Nami since she was a child, although she kept accumulating hatred in her heart, those fishmen killed humans mercilessly again and again. It also made her always believe that humans also have an innate hatred for fishmen. Now that she is a member of the fishmen pirate group, she will never end up well, field. But she could only helplessly watch Sha Chen approaching, but what she didn't expect was, "You have to learn to be sincere, Miss Nami," Sha Chen said as he gently placed his hand on the tattoo on Nami's left arm, water style, water backflow. A stinging pain like a knife cut came from the arm engraved with the tattoo, but Nami didn't scream, but stared at the man in front of her blankly. Sword-like eyebrows, starry eyes, high nose bridge, strong body, giving people a strong sense of security, especially her eyes that seemed to wrap around the sea of stars, so deep that people could not extricate themselves at a glance. Finally, the stinging disappeared, followed by a soft and warm feeling. But she didn't look at her arm, her eyes were all on Sha Chen, her heartbeat was getting faster and faster, and then she saw Sha Chen casually throw a group of colorful water balls in his hand down, as if accidentally hitting the drawing in front of Luffy. "Hey, my pirate flag, Sha Chen, what are you doing?" "Captain, your painting is really ugly." Sha Chen jumped down directly, and Nami's eyes were always locked on the latter's back. "Ugly? You are talking nonsense. Makino said that my painting skills can rank in the top 10 in the entire East China Sea." "Don't believe it, give me the pen. Give it to me. I want to see what you can draw." Luffy handed all kinds of paints and brushes to Sha Chen dissatisfiedly, and then he saw Sha Chen's hands flying like butterflies, directly on the black flag, painted a vivid straw hat skull pattern. Then Luffy immediately became Sha Chen blowing. Nami also curled the corners of her mouth, and then she paid attention to her right arm, which was as clean as before, and there were some water droplets, and the clothes on her body were also dried and warm. She stroked her arm unconsciously, muttering to herself, "Belmare, I seem to owe a huge debt." Since adopting her adoptive mother, Nami has never been as peaceful as she is today, and she has never felt that the stars that were just direction indicators in her eyes before are so bright and charming. Zoro, who has always been paying attention to Nami or guarding against her, obviously felt the change in the latter. The other party has changed from being infinitely wary of Sha Chen to being attached to him. He doesn't understand why there is such a change, and of course he is not interested. At least now it can be confirmed that Nami will not be half-hearted about their pirate group. It's good news, the vice captain is worthy of being the vice captain. However, he still thinks that Sha Chen's behavior is a bit inappropriate. How can a strong man be tied down by a woman? Little did he know that if there is no woman in his heart, he will be a god when he draws his sword. Ah, the vice captain seems to be playing a long-range game, so there is no problem. In the evening, Luffy wants to hold a banquet to welcome Nami's official joining. But Sha Chen refused because of insufficient materials, because he knew that this was not the most appropriate time. But he did not see the sadness in Nami's eyes. Around 10 o'clock in the morning of the second day, finally arrived, Zailuobu village. Sha Chen leaned on the railing, rubbing his temples with both hands, his head ached, looking at Luffy who was yelling and wanted to punch him. He worked the whole night yesterday, and was exhausted physically and mentally. Of course, with his current physical and mental qualities, it is impossible for him to be so tired after working the night. Because he was also practicing the use of observation haki that night. This was not achieved through hard work, so there was no gradual process. As soon as Sha Chen turned it on, a lot of voices flooded into his mind, which had a great impact on him. At least in the short term, it was unlikely for him to use it perfectly in battle. Fortunately, there was no opponent in the East China Sea who needed to use his observation haki. In addition, Sha Chen discovered that one of the advantages of this skill-based observation haki is that it is an active skill. As long as you turn it on, you will continue to consume your spirit and physical strength. For him now, it is a big burden, but Sha Chen doesn't have to worry, it will suddenly become ineffective. You should know that there is a setting in the world of One Piece. The user must keep calm to use the observation haki. Once the mind is disturbed, the observation hockey will be invalid, but this does not work for Sha Chen. Sha Chen only wants to say, God-level collection technique, YYDS. After all, the ship was openly flying the pirate flag. He did not go to the dock, but Nami personally waved it and docked here. Without waiting for the ship to dock, Luffy could not wait to rush up. In front of them was a narrow mountain road, which was simply a good ambush site. Zoro noticed Sha Chen looking around. He came closer and asked in a low voice, "Is there any problem?" "I feel this place." Before he finished speaking, a sound of running suddenly came from the end of the narrow mountain road, followed by a trembling male voice. "I am Captain Usopp. This place has been occupied by our pirate group, 80 million subordinates. Please, you leave immediately, otherwise, I will make you look good." Speaking the most frightening thing in the most cowardly tone, but revealing a sense of poverty. You already have 80 million subordinates, and you still warn the fart. If you take out 1/10 of them, even the 3 admirals of the Navy will have to avoid their edge here. In the war at the top, there are only 100,000 Marines. But Luffy believed it, Zoro believed it, and Nami hid behind Sha Chen nervously, holding his clothes tightly. 80 million. Sha Chen also felt like he was going crazy. Have you ever thought that there could be such powerful pirates in the East China Sea? Even the Kingdom of Goa, which ranks among the top in comprehensive national strength in the East China Sea, doesn't have so many troops, and even their citizens don't have 80 million. As for Luffy, he was also scared and stood there, his mouth stretched so long that his chin was about to hit the ground, but after reacting, his eyes were full of stars and he exclaimed, "So powerful." Then he rushed up. It seems that he really wanted to see this pirate group with 80 million pirates. Luffy. Zoro was anxious when he saw it, and without saying a word, he drew out his samurai sword and chased after him. Must kill Gunpowder Star. The projectile wrapped in flames flew towards the direction of the pirate flag, accurately. Sha Chen just thought about it, and a circular water curtain surrounded the entire boat. This so-called Gunpowder Star was extinguished by the sea water. Ghost, Captain, let's run. Yes, Usopp, we can't do it. No, this is our hometown. I must protect it. You 3 go to the village quickly and tell everyone that the pirates are coming. Let them hide quickly. I, Captain Usopp, will stop them here. Usopp's tears were streaming, and his solid nose was trembling, which was very funny. He has too many shortcomings, but he never lacks courage when he needs to stand up. Water escape. No, ninjutsu, fog hiding technique. A large amount of fog came from nothing, covering the entire coast and the places on both sides of the mountain road at a whirlwind speed. I hit my head. Who stepped on my foot? I can't see clearly. What should I do? Hurry, run. Usopp almost didn't even have any impression of his father, and it was mainly from the photos at home. This Zailuobu village was just an inconspicuous island in the Kingdom of Goa. He had no chance to meet a devil fruit user, let alone such news. Where had he ever seen such a weird thing? He made the most correct reaction and ran away, but a voice that came and went sounded beside him. Cervical vertebrae, throat, heart, kidneys. Usopp, he was so scared that he almost peed himself. He didn't have the strength to pull the slingshot in his hand, and his running action began to get out of shape. But he never begged for mercy. Defeat Usopp and get 5 draws. But the plug-in prompt has come. Sha Chen frowned and was not very satisfied. Although Usopp's current strength is very weak, his identity is not ordinary. It shouldn't be so low. Is it because he hasn't officially joined the Straw Hat Pirates? But since the Straw Hat Pirates have added himself, is there any need for him to join? After this thought flashed through Sha Chen's mind. He has come to Usopp's side. During this period of time, through the continuous accumulation of physical fitness, Sha Chen's height has exceeded 180 centimeters, just a little taller than Usopp, but the latter still feels like being corroded by a giant beast. Your name is Usopp, right? You know what it means to attack the pirate flag of another pirate group, right? Declare war. It seems that you are ready to be killed, but since you are the captain, I will give you a chance to call out all your 80 million crew members. We will bury them all at once. Usopp was so scared that he couldn't even speak, but Sha Chen added the last straw that broke the camel's back, of course, including this island. Usopp screamed and fainted. Sha Chen, you are so boring, please disperse the fog, I can't see clearly. The beautiful voice came from behind. Immediately, Sha Chen smiled, and as soon as he thought about it, those fell directly to the ground. Everyone walked up along the hidden passage next to the mountain wall, looking at the branches tied with black flags around them, and the traces of a large number of dragging on the ground. I suddenly understood that the so-called 80 million pirates were nonsense. Hey, what about the 80 million pirates? Did Sha Chen beat them away by himself? You are so awesome. This is Luffy. Zoro and Nami were speechless. Sha Chen rolled his eyes, and then Nami punched Luffy's head fiercely. Stupid, can't you see this? He is lying to us. Luffy screamed in pain, with a look of disappointment on his face, and he didn't know why he was disappointed. Then he immediately recovered, shouted that he was hungry, and ran towards the village that could be seen in the distance. What should we do with this person? Zoro flicked out a blade with his fingers, and the meaning was very clear. Should he kill him? After all, as a swordsman, he attaches great importance to honor. Since he has become a pirate, he must try his best to protect everything in the pirate group, which is also a kind of training for the heart. Forget it, young people are good, they fall asleep right away. We're almost catching up. Luffy doesn't have any money, we're here to buy a boat today, we have to leave a good impression. The two agreed greatly, and Sha Chen led the way, heading towards the village. As soon as they left, Usopp got up quickly, forced himself to control his trembling legs, and ran towards the mansion on the top of the mountain. Sha Chen and his friends had a simple meal in the village. They also got a lot of information. It turned out that this was just a temporary station of Kaya's Chamber of Commerce because Kaya's parents died in a shipwreck not long ago. Kaya's own health was not good, so she often rested here. As for the affairs of the Chamber of Commerce, ordinary villagers like them didn't know. So after Sha Chen and his friends had enough food and drink, they could only go to Kaya's family to ask. In fact, Sha Chen was more inclined to believe that the Mary had not been built yet. After all, every time he stayed in the East China Sea, his strength would increase by 1 point. As for the people of Zailuobu village, why didn't they recognize them as pirates? This was completely Usopp, who played the story of Wolf is coming to perfection in this village in another world. Everyone had long stopped believing in him and the few little guys who often followed him, and sometimes they were even chased and beaten by everyone. And out of protection for Usopp and his wife, few people knew that Jesus Bu of the Red Hair Pirates came from this village. When they were approaching the top of the mountain, they had not met anyone on the road, so Sha Chen activated his observation haki. Although it was only a one-night exercise, the coverage area had expanded from the initial 1 kilometer to 3 kilometers, and the effect was remarkable. He wanted to confirm whether Crow was there. The other party also had something that interested him. Sha Chen felt that Crow's luck should not be as outrageous as Buggy the Clown. Then he heard something even more outrageous. That Usopp actually ran here and talked to Miss Kia. No, he made up a story about his adventure at sea. Sha Chen scratched his face involuntarily. What's wrong with these people's brain circuits? They arrived at the top of the mountain smoothly, and were blocked by a huge iron gate on the mountain road. Luffy wanted to jump in directly, but was pulled by Sha Chen, motioning Nami to ring the doorbell. Ding dong. Soon, Crow, who is now the housekeeper of the Kia mansion, came out. Wearing a pair of glasses, with a kind smile on his face, he looked very deceptive. Even Zoro only frowned. He could only sense that something was wrong with this guy, but he couldn't tell what was wrong. As for Luffy, forget it, don't mention him. Are you the owner here? We are here to buy a ship. No, I'm the butler of this mansion, Krabatel. Chloe said, pushing his glasses with his palm, and his eyes accidentally swept across the 3 samurai swords hanging on Zoro's waist. I'm sorry, you came at an inopportune time. Our eldest lady is recovering from illness recently. It's not convenient to see outsiders, you should go somewhere else to buy. After saying that, Chloe planned to leave. Wait a minute, Sha Chen suddenly spoke. Chloe's back immediately tensed up, and his body leaned forward slightly. He knew the message conveyed by Usopp, so these 4 people should be pirates. But he had been hiding for 3 years, and just killed Kaya's parents. He didn't want to fail when the plan was about to succeed, so he suppressed the ferocity in his heart and looked at Sha Chen. Are those 2 pieces of shit on the sides of your clothes? What? Even a smart and clever person like Chloe didn't react. However, the next second he saw Sha Chen throw out a stream of water whip, which went straight through the gap of the iron gate and rolled towards him. His feet stepped on the ground quickly a few times, and the whole person disappeared silently. Sha Chen frowned. So fast. Mages are not good at dealing with agile masters. Sha Chen, what are you doing? Luffy was very unhappy and questioned Sha Chen with a serious face. Fortunately, Sha Chen was prepared. His body slightly blocked Nami, and he activated the observation haki to find Klo. Nami, find the one for Beiji Klo from the wanted list. Nami was also surprised by Sha Chen's sudden move, but when he said this, she and Zoro suddenly remembered the wanted posters they had seen before, and Zoro also stopped Luffy, who was about to question him. Zoro, draw your sword. Quickly armed, entered the three-sword flow state. And Nami also found the wanted poster for Klo. 16 million, hiss, so high, when did I get so much bounty? Luffy understood, but his brain circuit was really anxious. Here it comes. Sha Chen heard Klo's position. Sha Chen turned around, pulled Nami into his arms, and then summoned a spiral water flow, protecting them like a reversal of the sky. Puff! This water barrier, which was as thick as a fist, did not block the opponent's cat claw blade, but the speed of the water flow also made Klo return empty-handed. He himself is focused on assassins. Flow. He dodged and stepped back. How did you find me? And, pirates? No, you are pirate hunters. Kuro had no idea about the concept of observation haki, and no matter how powerful Silent Step was, it was just a physical skill. How could it be compared with haki that could rival or even restrain the power of Devil Fruit? Zoro was also very curious. He just noticed Kuro because he saw Sha Chen move and followed his instinct. If it was just him, he might have been attacked just now. Although Silent Step was naturally countered by observation haki. But in the novice village of East China Sea, it was still a crushing existence. Although Kuro's bounty was only 16 million, it did not mean that he only had 16 million strength. Of course, this specifically refers to the East China Sea region. This is talent. No matter how stupid Sha Chen was, he could not tell the other party the answer. In the original setting, Kuro's IQ is second only to Beckman of the Red Hair Pirates. He analyzed a lot of information from the expression on Sha Chen's face, but he didn't care. He just wanted to kill these people. Sha Chen is a Devil Fruit ability user. This ability has a limit to defense, so he has been slowly accumulating power. As long as he finds an opportunity. Just thinking about it, he suddenly saw an exit on the translucent water ball. Don't joke, how can I be a pirate hunter? Luffy rushed up with rubber in his mouth, and attacked randomly, making the surrounding forests and land a mess. I have said many times that he is just a fool. Kuro did not hesitate to disguise himself as a butler. There must be a conspiracy, so for Luffy, don't worry about anything else, just beat this guy first. Luffy's combat ability is indeed good, but because of Sha Chen's joining along the way, he lacked a lot of opportunities to practice. After all, Luffy himself is a character who gets stronger with each battle. So after fighting with Kuro for a while, he fell into a disadvantage. Zoro also went up to help. They basically maintained a balance, but when Sha Chen joined and was able to accurately prevent his position every time, Kuro felt a strong sense of crisis and retreated decisively. Luffy and Zoro wanted to go, but it was destined to be fruitless because they couldn't even find out where the other party left. Kaya, who heard the noise, and the seriously ill housekeeper Meili also came out. As for Usopp, he was hiding behind the bushes, looking at this side carefully. You, pirates. Sha Chen looked up and down at Kaya unscrupulously. I have to say that this girl's appearance can also be ranked in the top 10 in One Piece. For Sha Chen, who is determined not to be a licking dog, it is very attractive. It's a pity that she is a childhood sweetheart, a good rich lady, but she doesn't want to be a doctor for Usopp. It's not easy to dig a corner. Pirates. Mary immediately stopped in front of Kaya, opened his arms to protect her. Miss, run. Kaya's parents died in a shipwreck last year, suspected to be caused by pirates. Kaya's body was trembling slightly, but she finally mustered up the courage to push Mary away. Because of Usopp, he had a good impression of pirates, especially since their place was remote enough and had never been invaded by pirates. Please come in, guests. Kaya took the initiative to invite. Miss Mary looked at Kaya in disbelief. It's okay, Mary, they just saved us, didn't they? I believe they are good pirates, warriors on the sea, and fighters for freedom. Sha Chen raised his eyebrows. Oh, he didn't expect Kaya to be so eloquent. He couldn't remember the specific details in the original book, but this should not be shown. However, no matter what, she is the eldest daughter of a wealthy family. She has received elite education since childhood. It is normal for her to have a good reaction on the spot. Sha Chen also dispersed the spinning water ball in his hand. Following them into the mansion, he directly stated his purpose. Kaya agreed on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce and promised to help them build a pirate ship in the shortest time, but they had to help Zailuo village to block the incoming Klo. Although there was no direct evidence, Kaya felt that Klo would never give up and he would attack again. A guy who was willing to give up his captain's identity and serve as a butler for 3 years must have a big plan. Before Luffy and Sha Chen had any reaction, Nami agreed decisively. It was great that she didn't have to spend money. After that, Sha Chen and his friends didn't plan to delay. They went to the dock to make some arrangements. The area of this island is not small, more than 40 square kilometers, but there is only one Zailuo village on the entire island, and the rest of the place is mountainous and woodland, with complex terrain. Otherwise, Sha Chen would have used his observation color to scrape Klo out, but there were too many creatures such as mountain birds, fish and insects. In such an environment, Sha Chen was greatly affected, and he would not risk his life. Of course, the safety of Kaya and the others could not be ignored. After all, Crow's target had always been Kaya. Now that it was exposed, there was a high probability that he would kill people and slaughter the village. So in the end, they discussed and took turns to guard, 2 people in a group. Mainly considering that Nami had little actual combat power, and at the same time, because of Kaya's request, they also needed to take the safety of Zailuobu village below into consideration. 3 days passed, and there was no abnormality. Sha Chen had accumulated 10 draws. That night, he had just held a barbell with a ton of barbell plates hanging on it, and was exercising daily. Suddenly, he heard some noises. His movements were a little stagnant, and then he quickly returned to normal. Water escape earth net. During this period, many areas suitable for fighting were adjusted by Sha Chen. In a blink of an eye, the ground in this area with the mansion as the core was soaked with water. But the invader did not notice this subtle change. He hid in the dark, like a leopard cat waiting for prey, very patient. He even deliberately suppressed his breathing and heartbeat, but unfortunately he did not know that although the observation haki has the power of hearing, it is essentially an extension of spiritual ability. Although Sha Chen has not been able to achieve virtual imaging yet, it is still enough to deal with a Klo. Klo's body is like a spring, and it has collapsed to the limit. He is only 30 meters away from Sha Chen. With his current ability of silent steps, he can easily reach him in less than a second. What's more, he went back to review the previous battles in the past few days, absorbed lessons, and improved his silent steps. This time it will be more concealed. The fact that the other party did not notice him until he touched this side is the best evidence. But for some reason, there is always a sense of crisis in my heart. Boom! An explosion suddenly came from the port. Opportunity. He clearly saw Sha Chen turned his head and looked in the direction of the port. Silent step. Start. The cat claw blades on the palms of his hands flashed coldly under the hazy moonlight. He pushed the ground with his back feet and appeared behind Sha Chen like teleporting, slashing fiercely. Blood and water splashed in clusters. No, water splashes. Klo's pupils suddenly shrank into a small dot, and he quickly stepped on the ground to prepare to start the upgraded version of Silent Step, the spoon, which would be faster. Although the direction would be random, it was a pity that it was too late. The big hand formed by the flowing water grabbed his ankle, causing Klo to pause, and the Sha Chen that had exploded before had turned into water, wrapping him up and starting it began to spin rapidly, forming a spherical water prison. Gurgle. The water prison was getting bigger and bigger. Even Chloe could only struggle in vain, floating in the water prison, with no foothold at all. Fortunately, his physique was not bad, and he was not choked to death at the first time, but as the water ball became bigger and bigger, and the speed of rotation became faster and faster, he could not bear it. He vaguely saw Sha Chen, who walked out of the gate of the mansion, followed by 3 people. It's really a natural system. At this moment, Chloe felt that he had lost. The devil fruit is quite famous, but compared to the Grand Line, the information that the Four Seas can obtain is limited, and the world government deliberately suppresses the spread of information. But Chloe's ability is extraordinary. He has long known the relevant information of the devil fruit, and he knows that the devil fruit is divided into superhuman system, animal system and the most unsolvable natural system. His rash action this time was actually to gamble that Sha Chen was not a natural system. Unfortunately, he failed, but it doesn't matter, as long as his men succeed. In fact, they have observed the logic of Sha Chen's actions these days, and they are sure that they are not pirates. After all, how can pirates protect the village? Only those nosy pirate hunters would do such stupid things. So he arranged for his men to kidnap the villagers in the village, and then he could retreat safely by threatening the lives of the villagers. If he fails, he fails. After all, he really can't deal with the natural system. After Sha Chen made sure that he had completely controlled Kuro, he turned and said to the people behind him, "Nami, you protect them, I will help Luffy and Zoro." "Me, I can't." Nami refused immediately. She wanted to stay with Sha Chen, which was the safest way. "You can do it." Sha Chen smiled softly, put his two fingers together, and gently tapped Nami's head. Ouch. Although it didn't hurt, for some reason, Sha Chen often poked her like this during this period, and it felt good and not annoying. After that, Sha Chen took Chloe away. Chloe was almost unable to hold back his breath. He believed that Sha Chen would definitely talk to him, but he didn't expect that after walking on the hillside for a while and making sure that there was no one around. The water flow, which was originally full of restraint, suddenly became sharp. Two water knives that seemed to be there and not there, directly cut off the arteries and tendons of his limbs. I am useless. This was Chloe's first thought. Then why didn't this guy play by the rules, when he had clearly designed the next 5,678 steps for him? Unfortunately, he couldn't muster any strength to resist, and could only watch Sha Chen put his palm on his head. Collect 10 consecutive. Collection successful. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 35 points of physical fitness, 200 points of spirit, 3 silent steps, 2 cat claw blades, a spoon, and 1 shirt of Beiji Crow. Sha Chen's eyes lit up instantly. My luck is back. Crow lost weight at a speed visible to the naked eye, and the other party's eyes opened angrily, revealing a strong fear. He couldn't figure it out. Shouldn't Sha Chen's devil fruit ability be the natural water fruit? How could he be deprived of his ability? This is not a devil fruit. Come on, draw again. Bah, collect 5 times in a row. Originally, Sha Chen only had 10 times, but after defeating Crow just now, he was awarded 11 times at once. More than Aurida, less than Buggy, should be. I didn't do 10 times in a row because I was afraid that I couldn't draw good things anymore, and the harvest just now was not small. Collection successful. Congratulations to the host for obtaining a total of 50 points of physical fitness, 200 points of spirit, and 1 pure water. You, come again, 6 consecutive. I'm so excited. Collection successful. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 10 points of physical fitness, 150 points of spirit, 1 single frame glasses of Beiji Clo, 1 suit jacket of Beiji Clo, and 1 suit pants of Beiji Clo. Hiss. Sha Chen took a long breath again. His luck today was too good. And this Clo is simply a treasure. He can't kill him for a while. However, he can't take this Clo out to see people, because at this time, the other party is as thin as a skeleton, and looks like he has been drained of his energy by a guy who practices evil skills. This is the most obvious change that has occurred since Sha Chen obtained the God-level collection technique. But Chloe was not dead yet. Although his eyes were dim, the words, "Whoever comes will get a red hand," appeared faintly above his head. Of course, this was his own fantasy. The concept of red hand came from online games. It is generally used to describe those who can open treasure chests or use the collection number in the game to get higher level prizes or more loot. In fact, it has developed to the present time and refers to the luck value. He felt that the theory of luck tide would not work on him tonight. So he hastily dug a hole in the ground with water, put the ladder in, and broke Chloe's limbs by the way. Yes, it was broken. His current qualifications are as brittle as biscuits. Of course, his physique is not low. Then Sha Chen left without stopping, summoning the water flow to carry himself to the village below, which was already on fire. Stop right there, Usopp is here, don't even think about entering. On the central avenue of the village, Usopp, holding a slingshot, with trembling legs and tears and snot on his face, shouted at the 20-odd pirates with murderous faces and strange shapes. The 3 younger brothers who used to be inseparable from him were now locked up at home by their parents. And on the avenue behind Usopp, there was almost no one. Why do I say almost? Because some houses had lights on, but those people only dared to open the door cracks to look out, and no one came out. At the beginning, everyone thought that Usopp was lying and there were no pirates at all, but as Sha Chen and the other 2 patrolled the village from time to time, and with Mary's message, they knew that there were really pirates coming to Zailuobu village. And Sha Chen and the other 4 were invited by Kaya to protect everyone. Therefore, they were very popular in Zailuobu village during this period, and the villagers of Zailuobu village were also making preparations, and even hunters set traps at the fences around the village or at more hidden intersections. But unfortunately, when the time came, no one dared to come out, and they could only rely on a child who had just grown up to protect them. At this moment, many villagers felt a strong sense of guilt. Did they go too far with Usopp in the past? Brother Gia, I'll come. Watch me chop him. A pirate who was as thin as a rib said to the pirate named Buyuyaomadi Gia next to him, and rushed towards Usopp with a knife. Usopp tried hard to restrain the fear in his heart and shot a bullet at the pirate's head, but he, who was always accurate, made a mistake this time. Seeing that the machete had already chopped in front of his face, he didn't even have the strength to dodge. Many scenes flashed in his mind at this moment. This is the revolving lantern of life. Water escape water dragon bullet technique. But at this moment, a miracle happened. Several water dragons that were more than 10 meters long suddenly emerged from the surroundings of these more than 20 pirates. They surrounded them, and even the skinny pirate who was about to chop Usopp was knocked into the crowd by a water dragon. Water-style water dragon bites. Although Zhangao had hypnotized these minions before, they were still scared and turned around and ran away when they saw this scene, but it was too late. In just 3 or 4 seconds, the pirates turned into meat paste and were washed everywhere by the fierce water flow. Plop! Usopp knelt down. He stared at the scene in front of him in amazement, his face pale. It was too scary, and I felt like vomiting. Then, when Sha Chen stepped on a stream of water and quickly flashed past the street in front of him, Usopp looked over. At this moment, the other party's figure was so tall and untouchable. Sure enough, this threshold is too high. Quote, Sha Chen did not get the number of collections just now. Facts have proved that these pirate minions whose strength has been greatly improved by Zhangao's hypnosis are still minions. This also verifies some of Sha Chen's previous speculations. Considering that Crow's life is at stake, Sha Chen not only speeds up his advance. Crow may not have read military books, but he is very good at tactics such as besieging a point and attacking reinforcements and luring the tiger away from the mountain. Zoro and Luffy were led to 2 battlefields by him. He used the Cat brothers to hold back Zoro, and used Zhangao to hold back Luffy. The former is nothing. Sha Chen arrived at that time. I just saw the Cat brothers escaping under the cover of a group of pirate minions. They were heading towards the mountainous area in the southeast, and their pirate ship was clearly at the dock a few hundred meters away. The only advantage of the mountainous area is that the mountain roads are complicated and rugged. Do you want to hide with this? A trace of doubt flashed through Sha Chen's mind. The observation haki enveloped them, and with the air conditioning water flow, the Cat brothers were tripped. Seeing this scene, Zoro immediately lost interest in attacking. Anyway, he had defeated the pair of swordsman brothers. Sha Chen, who came to find you? Is it great? Clang! Zoro sheathed the sword. Clo! Sha Chen understood Zoro's little thoughts. He was competing with him. After all, he was just the vice captain. Then Sha Chen summoned 2 water guns and killed the Cat brothers who were lingering on. Defeat the Cat brothers of the Black Cat Pirates and get 2 collection times. It's reasonable. With the number from Kuro, it's 13 times. Zoro is a little autistic. He has simulated the original scene these days. He found that in addition to exchanging injuries for injuries, he found an opportunity to launch a big move. He has no ability to defeat Kuro at all. The opponent's speed is too fast and too weird. As a result, Sha Chen solved Kuro so quickly. Is Sha Chen's strength hidden very deeply, or is the devil fruit really so perverted? Then they rushed to Luffy in a hurry. As expected, Luffy was hypnotized by Zango. At this time, the whole person turned into a blood gourd. It was a bit unbelievable that he would be so seriously injured. Luffy, one sword style shishijej. Quote, ding. Zoro chopped off the circular blade. Sha Chen silently raised his hands. Water style. Water binding coffin. As luck would have it, this place is where they first landed on the island. It is very close to the sea. Sha Chen had originally predicted that this would be his battlefield, so the underground water veins are also extremely rich. Several spiral water currents were pulled from the underground and the sea surface, and quickly engulfed Zangao. The latter's physical skills are not even comparable to those of the Cat brothers. Sha Chen easily captured the other party, but he only choked Zangao to unconsciousness, and did not kill him. There are still many things worth collecting from him, such as the weird hypnotic ability. According to the later setting supplement, this Zangao was once unconscious in a mountain forest, and when he woke up, a strange mushroom grew on his chin. Then he ate the mushroom, but it was not a devil fruit, but this hypnotic ability was outrageous. And the later the ability, the more outrageous it is, just like cheating. At this time, Zoro had already fought with Luffy. Yes, although Luffy looked bloody, his injuries were not serious, and they were all flesh wounds. And although he was hypnotized, he had a beast-like stress response ability. Zoro was unable to use a knife, but was still beaten by Luffy. Come and help, I don't know what's wrong with Luffy. Zoro was really angry when he saw Sha Chen was still in the mood to watch the show. Sha Chen casually summoned a pool of water and splashed it on Luffy, who immediately lost his strength and collapsed on the ground. It was so easy to deal with the devil fruit ability user. Zoro was shocked. The gap between the devil fruit ability users was really bigger than the gap between people and dogs. But he didn't envy much. After all, his goal was to become the world's #1 swordsman. The swordsman's path, in addition to the sword, cannot be assisted by the outside, otherwise he will never reach the top. Just like what his master taught him, sacrificing life wisdom. Ah, it's so comfortable to sleep. Luffy's hypnotic state was also lifted. He woke up and stretched his body. Although his body was still stained with seawater and had many wounds, it was painful and numb under multiple stimulations. So he didn't continue to lose strength. Zoro was very upset. Why was his captain so unreliable? So this is why he was often beaten by Nami. Let's go. Take Luffy to get bandaged first, Sha Chen said. He couldn't wait to find Klo. After defeating Zango, he got the number of collections to defeat the Black Cat pirates. It seems that the judgment that defeating the captain means defeating the pirates is wrong, or it is only the Aurita pirates who are weak. Congratulations to the host for defeating the Black Cat pirates and obtaining a total of 16 collections. When Sha Chen first received this prompt, he was stunned. He thought he could play word games, but it turned out that he thought too much. He still had 5 times left on his account because he had to subtract the 11 times he had used. 5 times is fine, not a loss. This section of the road didn't take long, only 6 minutes. But the wound on Luffy's body has gone from bleeding at the beginning to slightly bleeding, and then to the bleeding stopping. Now only a very thin scar can be seen. If left alone, these flesh wounds on Luffy's body will be able to recover on their own in a day or two. It's really perverted. Then Sha Chen had doubts in his mind, such as how did the scar on Luffy's face come from, and how did the cross-shaped wound on Luffy's chest appear 2 years later in the original work? What level of terrorist attack was this that could not make up for Luffy's life, the combined terrifying recovery power of the rubber fruit and the mythical beast Nika form? Could it be a foreshadowing? Just like the shoehorn mark on Luffy's father, Long's face. Walking to the place where he had stored Kuro before, Sha Chen asked Zoro to take Zangao away first, and he was going to the jungle to relieve himself. Luffy had no doubts. Zoro looked at him deeply. Everyone has secrets, and he didn't want to expose them. When Sha Chen found Kuro again, he was already dying. What ability do you have? Kuro asked word by word. Sha Chen could feel his unwillingness. Want to know? Yes. Kuro nodded, and his neck made a crackling sound. Well, since you are about to die, I am actually. Kuro waited for a long time, but there was no follow-up. But Sha Chen himself had no obligation to give him an answer. This guy didn't know how many people he had killed for no reason. Even if Sha Chen would not seek justice for those people, he was as ruthless as ever in dealing with scum. Collected one time. Collected successfully. Congratulations to the host for getting 10 points of spirit. The familiar feeling of detachment came again, but Kuro could no longer do anything. I couldn't even moan. I felt that my soul was about to be sucked away and shattered. Not as red as before. But it was much stronger than that guy Buggy, so I used it again, and this time I collected the monocle of Beiji Crow. The other party used double lenses. Sha Chen studied this monocle. Although I don't know when Beiji Crow used it, it has a certain farsightedness function, which can be regarded as a high-tech equipment in the East China Sea. Sha Chen didn't give up and drew it again, but this time he directly drew Beiji Crow's leather shoes ×1. Then, just like the clown suit at the beginning, this time Beiji Crow's suit also triggered some mysterious reaction. Detected, components, synthesis successful, congratulations to the host for obtaining the Beiji Crow suit, special effects, one-click change, adaptive, neat. Sha Chen tilted his head, confused, what is this? What's the use? Then he looked at the suit he hadn't changed since he went to sea, and suddenly thought it would be nice to change his skin. But this thing must not be original. Fortunately, he studied it and determined that it was just reshaped with the original Chloro style as a sample. As for the reference sample, it was naturally scrapped. The suit that was originally scattered in the inventory was directly synthesized to occupy a grid. Fortunately, the things drawn before were either used or taken out and placed elsewhere, otherwise there would be no place to store today's spoils. However, Sha Chen did not change it immediately and continued to draw. This was the 4th time. Drawing successfully, congratulations to the host for gaining 1 point of spirit. It should be clean, Sha Chen muttered to himself, and Beiji Chloro also fell off in a distracted state. At that time, he stood up and used the vortex to destroy Beiji Chloro. This place is a good place for Chloro's burial. After all, this is the place he had been planning for 3 years. When he walked out of the woods, he had changed into a brand new outfit, a neat and clean black suit, a white shirt and a monocle on his left eye. Although Sha Chen's body was getting stronger, he was far from a muscular man, so wearing this outfit made him look more gentle. Unfortunately, if it had the feature of not wearing out, it would be more perfect. When he slowly returned to the mansion, Kaya and Mary were inviting Luffy to dinner. This was already a routine. As long as Luffy finished a fight, his first thought was to fill his stomach immediately. And Nami's attention was always at the door. When she saw Sha Chen coming in, she immediately came over with her eyes slightly shining. So handsome. Even Kaya opened her eyes slightly and covered her mouth. Sha Chen's appearance has always been very good at fighting. In the past, he didn't pay much attention to dressing up, and it would be easy to leave a deep impression on people. Now, with just a little tidying up, his overall handsomeness has increased several times. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.